Chapter 602. It was not the first time Dake used a dragon egg in a duel. In fact, during the duel assessment at the end of the school year, he had used a dragon egg, but his opponent was white at that time. This time, his opponent was Doran, so he hesitated a little. But that was it. When he summoned the primordial dragon egg, it meant that he was going to go all out. Let's not talk about whether the audience recognized this dragon egg. In short, Doran had an impression of it. His face tightened on the spot, and his lips trembled when he cast the usual summoning spell. Therefore, when he completed the summoning, dense cracks had already appeared on the eggshell of the dragon egg. Roar! The round head of the young green-eyed dragon suddenly broke the eggshell and let out a young but majestic dragon roar. Remember the website, MVIP, can't you? VIP. The audience outside the field suddenly exclaimed. Summon the second-tier magic elf. The commentator Zach Wilson's pupils shrank. This Dake Demon was getting more and more exaggerated. In the blue summoning area, Doran's magic elf was finally summoned. In the light of summoning, it was a dragon wildebeest. Card name, Primordial Dragon Wildebeest. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Bird Beast. Attribute, Ground/Dragon. Magic power, 1200. Attack, 1500. Defense, 1400. Killing skills, Dragon Scale Armor. Primordial Charge. Dake knew about the Dragon Wildebeest, but the Dragon Wildebeest summoned by Doran was taller than usual. There was a thick circle of gray dragon scales on its neck, and the sharp horns on its head had spiral patterns. Its forehooves were like iron. After all, the Doran family was the kingdom's wall, and controlled one of the 5 major knight regiments, the Dragon Claw Knight Regiment. It was easier to obtain a variety of low-level dragon materials. After Doran went back and forth during the holidays, the probability of refining a high-quality dragon magic elf was very high. Dake was not surprised by this. Moreover, creatures like the dragon wildebeest that had a trace of dragon bloodline would naturally be afraid when facing a pure-blooded dragon species. Although this wasn't very obvious among magic guiding fairies that didn't possess sentience, there was still some bloodline suppression. Dake held the next magic card in his hand and said decisively, Young green-eyed dragon, I'll leave that dragon wildebeest to you. Wow. The young green-eyed dragon let out a soft cry and stepped out of the eggshell. Then, after accumulating a little power, it suddenly charged toward the opposite side. However, it did not spread its wings and take off like Dake had expected. Instead, it began to run wildly on its short legs. Looking at the way it ran while opening its arms and barking, it was really excited. Dragon-horned horse, dragon-scaled armor, primitive charge. Dolong did not care about the actions of the young blue-eyed dragon, and immediately gave the order to the primitive dragon wildebeest. Even though the young blue-eyed dragon was a 6-star magic guide spirit, it still chose to take the initiative to attack. This aura is not bad. Dake's eyes flashed as he summoned his second magic guide spirit. Right in front of the red team's platform, it was the flying and fighting type magic guide spirit, Hawkman. Hatcha. The Hawkman's eyes were filled with excitement. As soon as it appeared, it spun around in the air and stood in an extremely handsome manner. Dake glanced at it and instructed, attack the opponent's magic guide ball. In the case of summoning 2 magic guiding spirits first, splitting into 2 was a common tactic, with one of them dealing with the opponent's only magic guiding spirit, and the other taking advantage of the gap to attack the magic guide ball. It could greatly delay the opponent's energy, making it difficult for the opponent to take care of the situation, and even make mistakes. Each round of a magic guiding duel only lasted 30 seconds. Within these 30 seconds, the duelist had to take into account both the operation and thinking. Moreover, they also had to give commands and respond to the opponent's taunts. The decision-making time was actually very limited. Under such circumstances, it was very normal to make mistakes. And because the onlookers had a clearer view, there were occasionally some audience members who would seize this kind of mistake and say things like, I can do it too. But in reality, they didn't even have a magic guiding card. Of course, with the popularity of simulated duels, those who boasted, I can do it too, could no longer use, I'm not a magus, as an excuse to decline. After hearing the order, the Hawkman's expression turned cold. It suddenly spread its wings and swooped down like an eagle. Its sharp eagle eyes stared at the blue magic guide ball. The situation on the field changed extremely quickly. When the Hawkman flew across the field, the young blue-eyed dragon had already fiercely collided with the primitive draconic wildebeest. Although the young blue-eyed dragon had an overwhelming advantage in terms of attack and defense, the primitive draconic wildebeest used two sure-kill skills at once. Not only did it rely on dragon scale rock armor to increase its defense and obtain the effect of damage reduction, it also used primitive charge to increase its attack power. The effect of primitive charge was very straightforward. The faster the speed of the charge, the higher the increase in attack power. The young blue-eyed dragon didn't expect this little draconic wildebeest to be able to cause damage to itself. It didn't have the upper hand in the first collision, but after the impact it immediately faced up. Its two dragon claws clasped inwards and fiercely grabbed the horn of the primitive draconic wildebeest. Then, using this horn as the pressure point, it forcefully pressed the head of the primitive draconic wildebeest to the ground. Ayo! The primitive draconic wildebeest let out a beast-like howl, but no matter how hard it struggled, it couldn't break free. On the blue team's platform, Doran nervously watched the primitive draconic wildebeest and the Hawkman that swooped down. His lips moved quickly and he suddenly shouted, "In the name of Teddy Doran, I summon the dragon-winged bug." The next moment, a blazing white light burst out from the surface of the magic guiding card in his hand, illuminating the magic guide ball in the blue team's summoning area. Then, in this beam of white light, a magic guiding fairy with black dragon wings suddenly appeared. The magic guiding fairy, named the dragon-winged bug, was not an insect species. Its main body was a ring. On both sides of the ring, there were black dragon wings. On the dragon wings, there were two small claws. At the bottom of the ring, there were two thick and sturdy claws. When the dragon-winged bug was summoned, Doran hurriedly said, "Grab the ball and take off." A concise instruction. The dragon-winged bug immediately opened its claws and grabbed the blue team's magic guide ball. Then, with a flap of its wings, it instantly flew high. In just a few seconds, the Hawkman swooped down and pounced on empty air. But after the Hawkman missed, it somersaulted low in the air and instantly locked onto the dragon-winged bug's figure. It ferociously chased after it. Card name, dragon-winged bug. Type, fairy card. Level, yin race fairy species. Attribute, flight. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 500. Defense, 200. Ultimate skill, parasitism, wings of the storm. When most magic guiding fairies did not have the ability to fight in the air, the Magister would often add one or more magic guiding cards to the deck to deal with the situation in the air. For example, Dake would add Flight Incantation to his deck. And Doran's countermeasure was this dragon-winged bug. The dragon-winged bug's flying speed was extremely fast, and it could parasitize other magic guiding fairies. At the critical moment, it could also use its ultimate skill, Wings of the Storm, to accelerate. Perhaps it was more useful than Dake's Flight Incantation. Of course, Dake was not envious. Although the dragon-winged bug's flying speed was very fast, the Hawkman was not slow either. And Dake stretched out his hand and pointed. Magic power gathered at his fingertips and suddenly shot out. A line of magic power stuck to the magic guide ball's life barrier with extreme precision. Then he bent his finger and pulled it. The dragon-winged bug's ring suddenly let out a wind-like howl, and its speed plummeted. Hatcha! The Hawkman's eyes suddenly lit up. It suddenly flapped its wings, and the feathers shot out from its wings turned into arrows, hitting the dragon-winged bug and the magic guide ball like rain. Although Feather Dance was not a damaging skill, it still disrupted the dragon-winged bug's wings. The Hawkman flapped its wings and immediately chased after it like a shuttle. Not good. Doran's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly shouted, "Wings of the Storm, shake it off!" Wings of wind condensed from airflow immediately appeared on the wings of the dragon-winged bug. Its flying speed suddenly increased, and it grabbed the magic conducting ball to avoid the arrows of more feathers. But the Hawkman narrowed his eyes and adjusted his direction to continue chasing. Although he could not catch up for a while, he did not pull away either. Not bad. Dake raised the corner of his mouth and touched the deck. Battle stage had switched to the second round. The Magister's long-range control of the magic guide ball was limited, unless the quality and quantity of magic power were high enough to break through the limit. Dake could not do this for the time being. Therefore, in a magic duel, his ability to control the magic guide ball was not much different from the average player. After the dragon-winged bug used its ultimate skill, his drag lost its effect. But relying on this drag, the young green-eyed dragon smashed the dragon-scale rock armor of the primordial dragon-horned horse and smashed its body into pieces. As the body of the primordial dragon-horned horse turned into magic light spots and scattered around, the young green-eyed dragon slowly raised its head in the light spots and looked at the dragon-winged bug that was fleeing in the air. Obviously, the collision with the dragon-winged horse aroused its desire to fight. When the round changed, the young green-eyed dragon flapped its wings backward. Its feet left the ground and flew into the sky. On the blue side's platform, Doran grabbed a magic guide card with an anxious expression. In fact, when the young green-eyed dragon attacked the primordial dragon-horned horse, it was not that he did not have a way to deal with it. It was just that the situation in the first round changed too frequently, so he did not find a chance to summon it. The magic guide card in his hand was called Dragon Binding Rope, and it could restrict the dragon species' performance to a certain extent. Once it was successfully trapped, it could at least prevent the primordial dragon-horned horse from being killed. And with the primordial dragon-horned horse and the dragon-winged bug on the scene, he could sacrifice and summon a 5-star magic guide spirit to slightly reverse the situation. Although it could only treat the symptoms and not the root cause, at least there was still hope. Unlike now, the acceleration of the dragon-winged bug could not last for too long. Once it stopped, it would definitely be caught by the horned eagle man and the young green-eyed dragon. This duel would be completely over. What should I do? He could only pin his hopes on a new magic guide card. Doran quickly drew his cards, but the 2 cards in his hand did not have a magic guide card that could resolve the situation. He anxiously looked at the situation in the field. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he glanced at the magic guide ball in the red side's summoning area. Then he immediately used the usual summoning skill. On the red side's platform, Dake immediately checked after drawing his cards. Moon God Soul-Eye, Demon Fox Beast, Demon Fox Beast. Moon God Soul-Eye was not suitable, and there was no need to use it in this situation. Dake's gaze naturally fell on the Demon Fox Beast. He did not hesitate and directly began to summon. Even if according to his inner calculations at this time, there was no need to do anything else. He only needed to watch the 2 magic guide spirits that had already gone on the field complete the encirclement of the dragon-winged bug, and then enjoy the fruits of victory. But for the sake of caution, he still chose to summon. It was obvious that after a period of adjustment, he had found the right mentality. The difference was less than 2 seconds. The summoning light in both sides' summoning areas lit up at the same time. The Demon Fox Beast appeared once again. Its expression was stern as it stretched its slender limbs. It was obvious that it was ready to fight. But what appeared in the blue side's summoning area was a small dinosaur that was less than a meter tall. It looked similar to a Tyrannosaurus, but the ratio of its head to its body was even more exaggerated, just like a doll. And on both sides of its big round head, there were antenna-like sharp horns that extended outwards. Meow. After this small dinosaur landed, it let out a kitten-like cry. Card name, Super Brain Viper. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Dragon attribute. Super/Dragon magic power, 1800. Attack 200, Defense, 100. Ultimate skills, Super Explosion, Psychic Hammer, Cave Fall. The magic guide spirits in Delanka's team were basically strong in close combat. This Super Brain Viper was very eye-catching among them. But it was an orange card. For most magisters, orange cards were the limit, and gold cards were wishful thinking. After Delanka refined this precious orange card, he was so happy that he did not sleep well for a few days. Especially the effect of this orange card. It was very strong. Although the attack and defense of the Super Brain Viper was inferior, its magic power was a whole 200 points higher than a 3-star pinnacle, and its ultimate skills were very practical. Super Explosion was an area of effect attack, and it was accompanied by damage to the spiritual level. Psychic Hammer was a physical one-target ultimate skill, and it had a probability of stunning the opponent. As for the final Cave Fall, it was the essence of this 3-star Magic Guide Spirit card. Superbrain Viper Cave Fall, the opponent's Magic Guide Ball. Dolong shouted out loud almost at the same time he summoned it. There was an unconcealable impatience in his tone, but it meant that he was not done yet. Thinking, fighting, and seeking victory. Even if he was in a desperate situation, Dolonka was fighting for the last chance. Me. The Superbrain Semi-Dragon suddenly opened its mouth, and a hole that looked like a cave appeared in its mouth. Just as the audience was confused, in the red summoning area, right below the red Magic Guide Ball, a black cave fall quietly appeared. Whoosh! The black cave fall produced a strong suction force. The red Magic Guide Ball was sucked into it without any warning. Dolonka's move was beyond everyone's expectations. Dake was already cautious enough, but he still did not expect this move. The Fox Demon standing in front of the red Magic Guide Ball only noticed it when the Magic Guide Ball was sucked into the cave fall. But it was already too late. The red Magic Guide Ball had already been sucked into the black cave fall. Then it fell out of the white cave fall in front of the Superbrain Viper. In just the blink of an eye, the red Magic Guide Ball had already fallen into the enemy's mouth. Dake's eyes were filled with shock. When his own Magic Guide Ball was in danger, he chose to attack the opponent's Magic Guide Ball. Besieging Wei to save Zhao was actually a basic tactic that Professor Cheongxi had repeatedly taught in dueling classes. Therefore, he was also on guard from the beginning. Not only did he summon the Fox Demon, but he was also ready to release his magic power at any time to pull the Magic Guide Ball up into the sky. But Dolonka's move was really impossible to guard against. Fox Demon. Dake suddenly shouted. The demon fox beast had already charged out before he could even shout out. Its eyes were extremely sharp, and its legs were running very fast. The young green-eyed dragon and the hawkman, who were chasing the dragon-winged bug in the sky, also noticed the abnormality on the ground. But they were chasing the dragon-winged bug at full speed, and it was not easy to change direction at the last minute. On the blue side's platform, Dolonka had already quickly issued an order. Superpower Explosion Psychic Hammer. Even if he could not completely shatter the red Magic Guide Ball's life barrier, it was very likely that the opponent would stop chasing and return to rescue it. But just as he issued the order, the Fox Demon, that he paid special attention to, turned into a ray of light. Fox Flash. Dake's order was extremely decisive. The Fox Flash of the Fox Demon was not a flash teleportation, but a speed-type surekill skill that could increase its movement speed explosively in a short period of time. It came with piercing, armor piercing, and other effects, but it was an additional effect after the speed was increased to the limit. The 120-meter-long arena was slightly too long for the Fox Flash. But after running for more than 10 meters, it would suddenly be used. After the speed had increased to the limit, it would rely on inertia to continue to explode, and it could cross the entire arena at a relatively high speed. The Fox Demon burst out at full speed for the first time in the duel arena. It was really too fast. The Superbrain WIREM had just gathered its magic and was about to release Superpower Explosion, but the Fox Demon's figure had already closed in on it in an instant. Its whole body was burning with blue flames, and its right fist was swung out at a speed that was close to disappearing. Surekill Skill. 8 Vine Fists. Extreme Movement Speed. Extreme Attack Speed. The Superbrain WIREM was as weak as paper in front of the Fox Demon. Bang! Bang! 2 almost continuous punches rang out in a short period of time. The Superbrain WIREM's body had already exploded into magic light spots. Dolonka's eyes instantly widened. The Fox Demon had appeared in the duel between Dake and White, and it had crushed the 6-star blood-burning orc with its 3-star body. But even though its transformation ability was enough to shock people, it had never displayed such speed before. Beep! The sudden sound of the whistle brought Dolonka back to reality. He immediately felt the strange feeling when his Magic Guide sprite was returned to the Magic Guide card after being killed. It was only then that he raised his head and smiled bitterly. It turned out that the dragon-winged bug had been caught up by the Hawkman wrestling, and then it was blown up by the green-eyed baby dragon that flew over a little later. And when the blue magic guide ball fell into the hands of the two magic guide sprites, it was naturally broken in an instant. 40000. It's over. Delanka took a deep breath. In this duel he had already concentrated all his attention to deal with it, but in the end, the outcome was decided in less than 2 rounds. The only consolation was that he was not directly slaughtered without any resistance. If Dake Diming's reaction was a little slower, he might have been able to turn the tables and win in the desperate situation. The Superbrain Wyrm's cave fall must have left a very deep impression on Dake. Thinking of this, Delanka looked at the contestants' platform opposite him. Dake happened to raise his head and revealed a smile. At this time, the audience outside the arena finally reacted. The commentator, Zach Wilson, began to loudly announce Dake Diming's second victory and replayed the thrilling scene several times. Some of the audience did not see what happened at all, so they quickly pricked up their ears to listen to his replays. Unfortunately, the Magic Guide projection did not have a playback function. Otherwise, they would be able to watch the replay carefully. And until Wilson clearly replayed the game, the applause became louder and louder until it resounded throughout the entire arena. Yvette, who was in the front row of the audience, also clapped her hands vigorously along with the applause. Her right armrest had already been crushed into a fried dough twist. But at this time, Dake Diming, who was on the red team's platform, was not immersed in the joy of victory. He smiled at Delanka, then lowered his head and fell into deep thought. Whether it was White's blood-burning orc, or Delanka's Superbrain Wyrm, they all made him gradually vigilant. Killing moves like spatial transference were certainly difficult to guard against. But as the number of duels increased, these kinds of tricks that were impossible to guard against would also increase. If he was not careful, it was very likely that he would be defeated. And White and Delanka, who had always been straightforward, were like this, not to mention his next opponent, Saraswati. This brown-skinned student of the same grade had already caused him trouble during his first duel in the first years. Now, she would definitely become even more troublesome. Saraswati was the biological daughter of the Sage of the Ancients. All the knowledge of the Sage of the Ancients was just an open door to her, and she could read the books at any time. When she grew up, she might be the next Winnie. It's a little difficult, but for some reason, I'm a little excited. Dake's eyes lit up. He found that he was gradually regaining his enthusiasm for duels. Duels, interesting. Dake. Delanka's voice came from the opposite side. Dake raised his head again and asked, "What's wrong?" Delanka scratched his head and said helplessly, "I still lost." Dake smiled and said, "Didn't I say that I would wait for you forever? You have to believe in yourself." Delanka took a breath and nodded hard. Then he raised the deck that he had arranged and waved at Dake, saying, "Then I'll go down first." "Okay." Dake nodded. After Delanka left the stage, he began to pack up the magic cards. Before recalling the young blue-eyed dragon, he did not forget to turn it back into a dragon egg. After a while, the 3 magic spirits were all recalled into the magic cards. He put the cards in his hand into the deck, and put them back into the card bag. 10 seconds later, a trace of fluctuation appeared beside him. The host's senior sister Judy instantly teleported over. What a convenient sure-kill skill. Dake couldn't help but exclaim. "Don't." Senior sister Judy raised her left hand and tapped the side of her nose with her index finger. "I know that you also have a magic spirit that can teleport." Of course, she was talking about the demon beast. Dake blinked and said, "Since it's the second interview today, let's make it short?" However, senior sister Judy smiled and said, "It's still 3 minutes." Dake sighed. "Sigh okay." Senior sister Judy picked up the microphone and said to the audience, "Twice in one day. This is the second time that we're interviewing Dake Diming on the winner's stage. I know that you still have a lot of questions. However, we can't force the contestants to answer questions that they don't want to answer. So, I'm going to boldly ask." Then she turned to Dake and asked, "Can I ask some questions that have nothing to do with this competition?" Dark put on a polite and friendly smile and said, "For example, senior sister's real name, or something like that?" Senior sister Judy didn't care at all and said, "If you really want to pry into senior sister's secret, senior sister can give you a chance." Dake shook his head and said, "Since there's no equivalent content, then don't ask." Senior sister Judy immediately looked surprised. "Judy is so worthless in your eyes?" Dake narrowed his eyes and nodded sincerely. "It's like this." Senior sister Judy's expression froze, and she glared at him with her back facing the audience. Then she pretended to cry and said, "But, whatever. What do dimming contestants think about this duel?" Dake answered formally, "Friendship first, competition second." Judy rolled her eyes and asked, "Then I'll change the question. What do you think about contestant Doran's strength?" "Your question is a bit sharp," Dake said directly in front of the audience. "But it's not like I can't say it. Doran is outstanding in the second year." Judy only asked a little, but of course she didn't ask any further. She smiled and said, "It seems that contestant Doran's performance has gained your approval." Dake shook his head and said, "It can't be considered approval. After all, we're in the same year and we don't agree with each other. If senior sister doesn't have anything else to ask, can we leave now? I still have a match tonight." Judy had seen the match schedule and knew it very well. This was one of the topics she wanted to bring out. But she still asked curiously, "Who's your opponent?" Dake thought about it and felt that there was nothing to hide, so he said directly, "Saraswati from the Magic Institute." "Contestant Swati?" Judy said, "That's a strong opponent among strong opponents." Dake, Senior sister Judy turned to the audience again and announced, "It seems that we'll be able to see Dake Diming's performance again tonight. To be honest, I'm already a fan of his. What do you guys think?" The audience immediately echoed in agreement. Dake looked at the thousands of audience members and felt a bit emotional. Judy suddenly turned around and said, "Do you have anything to say to your fans?" Dake thought about it and said, "First of all, thank you for your support. Then, I'll see you in the next match." After that, he showed an elegant aristocratic smile to senior sister Judy. Judy naturally understood what he meant and immediately said, "Then let's continue to look forward to today's third interview. Now we'll give Dimming some time to rest. Therefore, the interview of the winner of this match will end here. Next contestant, please get ready to go on stage." Dake finally walked down from the backstage. He realized that his initial plan was completely useless. He had too many duels planned for tonight. 3 duels, 3 times on stage. Even if the audience didn't know his name before, after these 3 duels, they would have a deep impression of him. Since he couldn't avoid it, he might as well go all the way. "If I can win the next duel, I'll do another advertisement for the club," he thought to himself and quickened his pace. After brushing past the 2 contestants of the next group, Dark entered the inner passage. Then he quickly caught up with Doran and returned to the seats in the ring with him. After the 2 of them sat down, Pitten patted Doran's shoulder with a look of regret. Doran could only smile bitterly and say, "I'm still far from it. I also put all my eggs in one basket. I didn't expect it to be so easily broken." Pitten said earnestly, "It's not that you're too weak, it's that he's too strong. We should understand that humans and gods can't be compared. Isn't that right, Dimming God?" Dake. The match at night was in full swing. It was easier to get excited in a dark environment. The audience was even more excited than in the daytime. The second-year newcomers were also affected by the atmosphere. Whether it was before or after the duel, they were all excited. Dake was replenishing the mana of his magic guide fairies while watching the match. In the match with Doran, he didn't use any Great Sin card, so he didn't have to worry about the cooldown. Only Dragon Egg Transformation had entered a long cooldown. If the next match ended too quickly, he might not be able to use Dragon Egg Transformation to return the young cyanide dragon to its original state. But this possibility was relatively small. After all, Dragon Egg Transformation only had a cooldown of 1 hour. The preparation before and after every match, as well as the interview, would definitely take 10 minutes. After 9 matches, it would take at least 1.5 hours. And Dake's match with Sarah was in the 21st match. But speaking of Sarah, Dake suddenly noticed that he hadn't seen Saraswati for a while. Not only did he not see her in the cafeteria, But he also didn't see her in the audience. Heidi, who was supposed to be inseparable from him, was now sitting alone. So where did Sarah go? Dake couldn't help but wonder. More than an hour passed in the blink of an eye. The 7th match of the evening, which was also the 17th match of the day, the second-year Night Academy's top student, Aima Métis, finally appeared. And her opponent was White Gouda, who appeared for the second time. White's morale was boosted after losing to Dake, and he was determined to win. In his duel with Aima, he did indeed show a lot of things. For example, during the duel exam at the end of the school year, he had once summoned the giant bloodworm. He had also used the bloodworm that had exploded into a sacrificial offering to specially summon the 5-star magical elf, Bloodseeker. This was originally his trump card to get a good result in the duel exam, but because he met Dake, he didn't even have the chance to use it, and was completely defeated. But in his duel with Aima, he finally summoned it and relied on Blood Demon and Taboo Love to gain an advantage. However, Aima fought steadily and wasn't in a hurry at all. She slowly recovered from the disadvantage and suppressed White with a terrifying steadiness, finally turning the tables and winning. Then the audience gave the two contestants the warmest applause. Emma Métis, a student of the Night Academy, who was even more famous than the Mage Academy, had finally entered the public eye. During Aima's interview, Dake noticed that Sarah returned to her seat in the ring and sat next to Heidi. Since his opponent was here, Dake didn't pay much attention. After that, 2 more matches were over. His branch card vibrated. Opening the branch card, it was indeed a reminder from the duel club. Thus he said goodbye to Doran and Pitten and stood up. Win. Doran waved his fist at him. I'll do my best. Dake smiled and strode away. Following closely behind, Saraswati left the audience with a relaxed look. Not long after, the two of them entered the contestant tunnel one after the other. Hey Dake, I heard you already won 2 matches? Sarah greeted from a distance. Dake slowed down and waited for her to catch up. Yet you weren't in the first match? Nope. Sarah raised her index finger and shook it as she giggled. Dake said, That's a pity. There were a few interesting matches today. Sarah blinked. Including your 2 duels? Dake said, I don't know. After all, I'm not an audience member. Maybe the audience won't think it's exciting enough because it's too short. It's okay. Sarah walked side by side with him and raised her head slightly. The audience is always more willing to remember the last match. As long as the match between you and me is exciting enough, it's fine. Her tone was relaxed and her expression was full of confidence. 9,000 plus words, 4,000 guaranteed, 5,000 plus chapters. 25/. The reward is about 50 chapters so far. It's expected. Finally, I'll continue to ask for votes and props from the cute babies. Good night. Chapter 603. At this time, the curtain of the night was already dark, and the light of the entire open-air duel arena was gathered on the dueling stage, illuminating it with a snow-white glow. The 20th duel of the day had already begun. The 2 sides were students from the Night Academy and the Noble Academy. The 2 students stood on opposite sides of the stage, and their words were sharp even before the duel began. When the duel began, they were even more at odds with each other, shouting incessantly. Dake and Sarah went straight to the exit of the contestants' tunnel, watching while waiting for the end of the duel between the 2 second-year students. Sarah glanced sideways and stole a glance at Dake's face. She couldn't help but think of the duels in the first year. Duels were indeed one of the most effective ways to understand a person. The first sentence she had spoken to Dake was during their first duel. After that, she couldn't help but observe this boy in the same year. Before she entered the Shungmalian Academy, she had always thought that there was no boy who could attract her so much. However, Dake Dimming had entered her field of vision just like that. Website. https://m. Vipcanchu. VIP. Unlike her carefree appearance, Sarah was very meticulous and had a strong competitive spirit. She could be said to be the same type of person as Aima, but she was easier to get along with in terms of personality. In other words, she had a higher EQ. As the daughter of the Sage of the Ancients, Sarah was proud of her father, and was confident in her knowledge that surpassed that of her peers. She was used to standing in the center of the crowd, receiving everyone's praise, and using this as her motivation to move forward. However, she was now standing at the bottom of the stairs, in a position to catch up. However, in this world, no one's position was eternal. She used to stand at the top of the stairs, and now she was standing at the bottom of the stairs. In the future, she would return to the top of the stairs. Beep! The referee's whistle sounded, and the winner of the 20th duel was finally decided. The staff at the entrance hurriedly reminded the two of them to get ready. Dake nodded and called Sarah, "It's our turn." Sarah stretched her arms, stood up from her half-leaning posture, and followed Dake's footsteps. Sarah's figure was slender, and her height was close to Dake's. At the age of 13, she was already 1.65 meters tall. Dake was already 1.69 meters tall. Compared to this time last year, he had grown about 10 centimeters, and was still growing rapidly. Perhaps in another year, he would be able to catch up to Senior Panduola. Sarah had wheat-colored skin, which was rare in the kingdom. She had a high nose bridge and slightly plump lips. The corners of her eyes were upturned like phoenix eyes, making her look very exquisite. Her legs were straight and slender, very eye-catching, but she also had a lean body that was not uncommon for girls her age. As the two contestants walked out of the tunnel one after the other, the spectators nearby immediately started shouting. Sarah, like Deanna and Luosi, frequently appeared in the newcomer competition. Of course, she spent most of her time testing her tactics or experimenting with the newly refined magic cards. There were many hidden ways to earn credits in the Sheng Malian Academy, and Sarah was not worried about credits. By the time the interview of the winner of the 20th round was finally over, the two contestants walked out of the arena. They waited until that student had stood, and then walked back to back toward the contestant platforms on either side. Dake was on the red side, and Sarah was on the blue side. Walking onto the contestant platform for the third time that day, Dake habitually wanted to wave to Yvette, but as soon as he raised his hand, the crowd on the other side of the arena immediately raised their hands and waved them like swaying seaweed. He felt awkward inside, but on the surface he still maintained his elegant appearance. He simply waved at the audience, and then slowly let go of his hand. To appear on stage 3 times in one day, to say nothing of other things, he had cultivated a lot of fans. "Looks like you're quite popular." Sarah's voice, full of laughter, came from the contestant platform across from him. Dake reached out to activate the card table, and responded. "The audience always chooses to support the people they want to support. Perhaps I'm just what some of them want." Sarah said in surprise. "So you care about popularity too? I always thought you didn't care about this at all." Dake couldn't help but smile. "Although I don't know what you think of me, of course I want more people to support me." Sarah rolled her eyes and said, "Then if I win, will your fans change their allegiance?" Dake laughed. "That depends on your ability." Sarah raised her eyebrows and said, "Let's see." Dake said, "Let's wait." After the two finished talking, they immediately took out the cards they prepared in advance, and then put them in the card slots. When the card table detected that both contestants had put in their cards, the words "Preparation Stage" appeared in the box above the card table. Then the automatic shuffling system was activated. Voila! The sound of the automatic shuffling was brisk and rhythmic. Whether it was the contestants in the arena or the audience outside, they all calmed down with the sound of the shuffling. When the shuffling was complete, the preparation stage would enter the second stage of the 30-second countdown. This duel would begin immediately. "It seems like everyone here is looking forward to this duel just like me." Commentator Zach Wilson's voice sounded faintly. As we can see, the contestant on the red platform is contestant Dark Diamond, who is already on the stage for the 3rd time. In his first 2 duels today, he ended them within 3 rounds. And on the blue platform is contestant Saraswati, who is on the stage for the first time today. As the top student of the 2nd grade, Saraswati has the same surname as the famous Sage of the Ancients. That's right, she is the successor of the Sage of the Ancients. Hearing this, I think everyone here will think of one person. She is now a 4th grade student of the Magic Academy, Winnie Scatty. Contestant Sarah and contestant Winnie have similar backgrounds and experiences. Even the pronunciation of their surnames is very similar. I can't help but sigh. Fate is always so coincidental. But can contestant Sarah become a powerful duelist like Frigid Winter's daughter? Let's wait and see. Beep. The referee's whistle sounded at the right time. Behind the preparation stage, a 30s countdown appeared. Whether it was Dake on the red side or Sarah on the blue side, they both showed a slightly serious expression at this moment. The expressions of both sides were magnified by the projection and displayed in front of the live audience. As the 5 magic cards were drawn, the expressions of both sides changed again. Saraswati seemed to have drawn a very ideal magic card. Her eyebrows were raised. Dake Diming's side was not weak either. He fanned out the 5 magic cards and looked carefully. Dream Demon, Curse Cage, Little Demon, Fairy Ibu, Underworld Soul Ring, Bliss 3 Moon. First is the Dream Demon. Together with the controllable Bliss 3 Moon, it can summon a Dream Demon very quickly. Next is the Curse Cage, Little Demon. If Bliss 3 Moon is used, it can also evolve into a Heidi Road Beast. And if a normal sacrificial summoning spell is used, it can also summon Fairy Ibu. Finally, there's the Underworld Soul Ring. I wonder how Sarah will deal with this. As he pondered, Dake raised his head slightly and saw Sarah's gaze on him. It was as sharp as a blade. Looks like she's very confident. Dake pointed his finger at the Dream Demon. Sarah was an opponent that he had to take seriously when they were in first year. Now that she was in second year, she was naturally strong. And unlike White and Doran, Sarah was always able to bring him endless surprises. Dake could not help but have more expectations. Drip. As if a drop of water had dripped into the heart, the ripples immediately spread out. Preparation stage, battle stage, the 30s, countdown of the first round began. Both sides instantly focused and began to cast their normal summoning spells at an extremely fast speed. Even White had already compressed the casting time of his normal summoning spell to less than 4 seconds. Let alone Saraswati, who was learning faster than him. There was almost no difference in the summoning speed of both sides. In both summoning zones, the light of summoning lit up at almost the same time. After losing his usual advantage in summoning speed, how was Dake Diming going to gain a new advantage? The professor of the second-year dueling class, Pawa Cheong-si, could not help but think. In the name of Dake Diming, I summon Dream Demon. In the name of Saraswati, I summon Skeletal Beauty Snake. At the same time, both sides summoned their spirit-type, magic spirits at the same time. In the red team's summoning zone, Dake summoned a petite and cute nightmare. Although it was a specter, it was a dark green magic spirit that was as cute as a doll. But the red string of beads hanging around the neck of the Dream Demon emitted a frightening aura. In the blue team's summoning zone, Sarah summoned a skeletal beauty snake that looked terrified. The giant snake that appeared with the black fog was thick and long. It was an undying species. The skin on its head cracked open, revealing its pale white bones. 3 inches below the skin on its neck, there was not even a trace of flesh. The pale white bones drilled out of the flesh on its neck and extended all the way to the tip of its tail. The skeletal beauty snake had a skin fold on its neck that was shaped like a cobra. The pattern on the skin fold was like the face of a beauty with heavy makeup, emitting a seductive and horrifying aura. Card name, Skeletal Beauty Snake. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Undying Species. Attribute, Spirit type. Magic power, 1200. Attack, 1500. Defense, 900. Ultimate skill, Ghostly Entanglement. This was not the first time Dake had seen Sarah's skeletal beauty snake, so he knew how troublesome it was. Thus, he immediately ordered the Dream Demon to guard in front of the magic ball and not move. 3 seconds later, Dake began to summon Bliss 3 Moon. However, Sarah commanded loudly at the moment of summoning. Skeletal Beauty Snake. Ghostly Entanglement. The skeletal beauty snake, that emitted a terrifying aura, suddenly let out a sharp hiss, dragging its pale white tail and flying out. Although it was a spirit type, it had a physical body. The bone tail whipped the ground, making a cracking sound. However, its speed was unexpectedly fast. Fortunately, the arena for the official duel was a full 120 meters. When the skeletal beauty snake rushed over half of the arena. Dake had already completed the summoning. The light of Bliss 3, moon sprinkled down like rain, bathing the dream demon in it. As if it felt the pressure from the skeletal beauty snake. The dream demon did not laugh, which was rare. Instead, it crazily absorbed the power of bliss. Little demon Heartsuit, the badge that symbolized bliss, bloomed between its eyebrows. The pink light kept merging into its body. The dream demon's body grew rapidly. From the original child's body, in a blink of an eye, it transformed into a young lady's body. In a blink of an eye, it had completed a life form transformation. The dream demon had already turned into a deep purple color. Its overall appearance was like a magical girl wearing a pointed hat. The beads that once hung on its neck had transformed into 3 red gems embedded on its body, emitting an even more astonishing aura. Card name, Dream Demon type, Sprite card, level. Race Undying species attribute, Spirit type, Magic power, 2700, Attack, 2500, Defense, 1600, Killing skills, Gem of Terror, Pain sharing, Same life, Nightmare realm. However, the skeletal beauty snake did not fear this 5-star enchanted sprite in the slightest. In a blink of an eye, the skeletal beauty snake had already rushed over half of the arena, entering the red half. When it neared the dream demon, the beauty with heavy makeup on its neck suddenly revealed an extremely sinister smile. In the next moment, the beauty with heavy makeup actually drilled out from the skin. From its face to its body, it was as if it broke out from the skeletal beauty snake's body. The beauty laughed silently, rushing towards the dream demon, like a specter. Ghostly forest. Saraswati's voice followed closely behind. A dark green light shot out from the second enchanted card in her hand like an arrow, accurately shooting into the skeletal beauty snake's body. The skeletal beauty snake's body suddenly stiffened for a moment. Then a dark green fog exploded from inside out, surrounding its entire body in the blink of an eye. The beauty's soul that drilled out from its body suddenly seemed to be wearing a dark green cheongsam, becoming more condensed and real. The beauty's soul penetrated through the dream demon's body. The dream demon, suddenly let out a cry, feeling a chill seeping in from the outside. It was as if its body was in an extremely cold winter, and its entire body was frozen stiff. The skeletal beauty snake's beauty's soul took advantage of the time when the dream demon had just evolved and repeatedly penetrated its body several times. Every time it penetrated the dream demon's body, the feeling of being frozen stacked up. After a few times, the dream demon's body was completely stiff, not moving at all. Enchanted ball. Sarah's next command was immediately sent out. The skeletal beauty snake's body didn't care about the dream demon at all, shrinking its body and shooting towards the red enchanted ball. Sarah's goal was extremely clear, which was to use the skeletal beauty snake's power to take a big bite out of Dake's HP. However, Dake already knew her attack pattern, so he couldn't let her succeed. Light of fear. Following Dake's command, the frozen dream demon suddenly opened its eyes wide. From the brim of its hat, a pink light shone out from its eyes. The 3 red jewels of fear on its chest suddenly released a magical light that shone like jewels. The fear it accumulated every night was converted into magical power and stored within. Now that it was released in an instant, it caused the beauty's soul that was illuminated by the magical light to melt like snow. Good thing it evolved in time. If it was the dream demon, I'm afraid even its thoughts would be frozen. Dake rejoiced as he watched the skeletal beauty snake's body forcefully resist the magical light and continue to crash into the enchanted ball. Then he bent his finger, and the enchanted ball shot upwards as if it was loaded with a spring. Immediately after, the dream demon, that gradually regained its ability to move, opened its eyes wide, and used telekinesis to firmly clamp down on the skeletal beauty snake's body. The situation on the field turned around extremely quickly. Sarah, who was on the blue team's platform, didn't stop summoning while giving orders to the skeletal beauty snake. Her third summon had impressively been completed. In the blue team's summoning area, a mummy girl wrapped in snow-white bandages knelt down on one knee, Her magic staff pointed to the ground as she materialized. Dake had similarly seen this 3-star enchanted sprite before. Card name, Living Mummy. Type, Sprite card. Level, *****. Race, Undying Species. Attribute, Dark. MP, 1200. Attack, 1000. Defense, 1000. Killing move, Darkness Rebirth. It had a crown on its head, and a magic staff in its hand. Its bandages were loose, revealing its skin. Its exposed skin was brimming with vitality, and half of its face was exquisite and smooth. The living mummy, that possesses the killing move, Darkness Rebirth. Dake's heart was filled with warning signs. He felt a pressure he hadn't felt in a long time in this duel. Instead, he curled his lips into a smile, and before the round changed, he issued an order. Dream Demon, Nightmare Realm. Demonic Mimi. The Dream Demon solemnly replied. A thick purple fog erupted from its body, spreading out like smoke. The lower half of the skeletal beauty snake's body was submerged in the thick fog. Battle Stage 2. 30s. Both contestants drew their cards at the same time. First Dragon's Egg. Bliss 3. Dake added the 2 enchanted cards into his hand, but he wasn't that excited. The Dream Demon, on the ground, didn't completely spread out the Nightmare Realm. Although the purple fog was only a special effect of the Nightmare Realm, it still indicated the range of the Nightmare Realm. It only covered a small half of the arena, because the Nightmare Realm's space distortion effect was constant, and the Dream Demon could only be released but not retracted. If it completely spread out at once, it would instead cause trouble for Dake. Especially for Sarah's Mummy series, they were basically mummies with extremely slow basic movement speed. Thus, they would instead benefit from the Nightmare Realm. After spreading out the Nightmare Realm, the Dream Demon's figure flashed. It gathered its claws and viciously clawed at the crazily struggling skeletal beauty snake. The skeletal beauty snake, that had been infused with the Sun Luo ghost energy, had already broken through the first tier. But with only its original body left, it definitely wasn't a match for the Dream Demon. Dake only glanced at it, and then began to cast his usual summoning technique. In the name of Dake Demon, I summoned the first dragon's egg. When the enormous dragon egg appeared from the purple fog, the audience that had a deep impression of it immediately cheered. White and Doran on the ring-shaped belt both clenched their fists tightly, but Saraswati on the blue platform wasn't the slightest bit nervous. She bent her finger, and an enchanted card floated in the air. From the surface of this enchanted card, a pitch-black ray shot out. Before the cyanide whelp hatched, it had already shot into the dragon egg. That black ray twisted into a spiral shape, but it didn't break through the dragon egg's defenses. Instead, it directly penetrated inside and frantically absorbed the energy within. Dake's pupils contracted, once again feeling the barrenness of knowledge. For a moment, he was actually unable to recall what Sarah's curse enchanted card was. It's the magic absorption curse. But Sarah suddenly laughed and blurted it out. The magic absorption curse, also known as the magic absorption curse, was a curse that human magicians developed with great difficulty to resolve their lack of magic. But the actual usage of this curse wasn't very good. Although it was able to absorb magic from other magicians, but in the process of instilling magic, there was a problem. The efficiency was only 1/10. 1/10 efficiency. This caused the magic absorption curse to become a chicken rib among chicken ribs. On the other hand, the demons were born with a huge amount of magic. Relying on the magic absorption curse couldn't completely drain their magic, and the other party wouldn't just stand there and let you absorb it. Over time, the devil drawing curse was rarely mentioned by people. But when Sarah used it in a magic duel, it was unexpectedly useful. The magic absorption curse was simply the nemesis of the enchanted fairies. Although the enchanted fairies from the second tier onwards had a partial immunity to this type of curse, the enchanted fairies from the first tier were almost unable to resist. The students in the ring-shaped belt looked at the appearance of this enchanted card, and they were all deep in thought. But Dake frowned. The magic absorption curse had limited effect on the 5-star Dream Demon, but it just happened to interrupt the primordial dragon egg from hatching. But Sarah clearly didn't watch his duel with Doran. Could it be that she came up with this strategy just based on the dual assessment at the end of the year? Or was it an improvisation? Now wasn't the time to think about these reasons. Dake forcibly stopped his train of thought and didn't want to waste time on this point. Then he continued to summon on the spot. In the name of Dake Dimming, I summon the spell Cage, Little Devil Beast. Since Dake had already moved the magic ball to the height of the contestant's platform, the Little Devil Beast was directly summoned a little in front of the magic ball. The summoned Little Devil Beast wasn't excited. It probably didn't expect that it would have a chance to appear on stage. After it was summoned, it just flapped its wings and maintained its flight. And on the opposite side, Sarah ensured that the magic absorption curse was working normally, and she was also summoning the next enchanted fairy. Her situation on the battlefield was actually not good. The strengthened skeleton beauty snake wasn't a match for the dream demon, and it wouldn't last long before it was torn apart. Even if she relied on the living mummy's dark rebirth to temporarily revive it. No, dark rebirth was a sure kill skill that could only revive a dark enchanted fairy that wasn't higher than the user's level for 3 minutes, within 3 minutes of death. And the skeleton beauty snake was of the ghost element, not the dark element. In this aspect, Dake made a mistake in understanding. This meant that once the skeleton beauty snake was destroyed, Sarah would have no combat power in the field. Therefore, she had to take measures to make up for it. When she was in her first year, she didn't have a high-star enchanted fairy, which was her shortcoming. But that was already the past. In the name of Saraswati, I summoned the Dead Soul Jar. A magic enchanted fairy that looked like a black jar appeared beside the blue magic ball. Looking down from the top, one could see 3 black spheres wandering in the jar. Conceptually, they were the souls of the dead that condensed into the Dead Soul Sphere. The 3 Dead Soul Orbs were 3 1-star offerings. Together with the 3-star, living mummy, one could summon a 6-star enchanted fairy at most. But Sarah didn't do that. The living mummy was very important in her tactical system, and it couldn't be used as a pure offering. Therefore, after summoning the Dead Soul Jar, she began to summon the second spell card. Life's Prohibition. It was a spell that people without talent couldn't even touch. But before Sarah could successfully summon the Life's Prohibition, Dake took the initiative to summon the Underworld Soul Ring. In the name of Dake Dimming, I summon the Underworld Soul Ring. Dake bent his finger, and a thick necklace that was 2 fingers wide appeared in front of the little demon beast. Of course, it wasn't for the little demon beast to wear. Dark looked at the living mummy who was still guarding the blue magic conducting ball and said softly, "Don't worry, the living mummy. Go." The soul necklace disappeared in an instant. When it reappeared, it was on the mummy girl's delicate neck. The necklace that came from the underworld. A soul ring that could bind a first-tier enchanted fairy to one side and offer it as an offering. The living mummy felt the binding on its neck and instinctively reached out to grab it and pull it out. But this underworld soul ring that was refined with gray fire had a very strong binding power against first-tier enchanted fairies. The living mummy let out a silent scream. It was actually caught by the underworld soul ring and was quickly dragged toward the red side. Sarah's Life's Prohibition was only successfully summoned at this time. It was only a beat slower. The dark wall stretched across the blue side's summoning area. 7,000 plus words, 4,000 guaranteed, 3,000 plus 1. 5 chapters. / After some calculations, the reward is about 70 chapters. I'll try to pay it back in 2 months. After I wake up, I'll try to make up for the 4,000 words that I missed in the past 2 days. Storm Cry. There are still 9 days until the reward ends. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 604. This black wall that spanned across the arena emitted an extremely dense aura of death. It caused the professors and upperclassmen to reveal shocked expressions. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would have thought that this was a curse released by a second-year student? Even Winnie Scardy lowered her head and asked the people beside her in shock. When she found out that Sarah had joined the Archaeology Society and not the Literature Society, she couldn't help but sigh. However, the timing of Life's Prohibition was a bit too slow. After the living mummy was forcefully taken away by the Underworld Soul Ring. Dake, dimming on the red team's platform, quickly used the sacrificial summoning technique. He was already very familiar with the sacrificial summoning technique. Although he still hadn't reached the 3-second limit, he was very close. Living Mummy was 3 stars. Curse Cage, Little Devil Beast was 1 star. Using Living Mummy and Curse Cage, Little Devil Beast as sacrifices, sacrificial summoning. Fairy Ibu. Feeling that its body was about to turn into light, Little Devil Beast's face revealed a helpless expression of as expected. Then, it followed the Living Mummy, and became a sacrifice to summon Fairy Ibu. When the 3 rays of light gathered together, and drew a complicated sacrificial summoning array in the air, Sarah on the blue team's platform couldn't help but frown. It's actually a curse that can forcefully turn the opponent's magic fairy into a sacrifice? The discussion outside the arena instantly increased. The commentator, Zach Wilson, let out an incredulous cry. Under everyone's gazes, the extremely cute pink magic fairy finally jumped out of the sacrificial summoning array. Fairy Ibu swayed its 2 ribbons and looked up at the night sky as it landed. A full moon hung high in the pitch-black night sky, and bright moonlight gently sprinkled down. It inhaled slightly, and bits of moonlight gathered, making it look like a fairy dust. It became even more charming and cute. Demonic Mimi. The Dream Demon dealt the final blow to the skeletal beauty snake, completely killing this troublesome skeletal beauty snake. Without the Living Mummy on the stage, the skeletal beauty snake had no hope of returning. However, in the death soul jar hidden behind the life's prohibition, there was a death soul ball that was swimming silently. In the red team's summoning area, Fairy Ibu, who had been conveniently summoned, bathed in moonlight and emitted charm. The second round was about to end. Both sides only had 1 card left in their hands. It could be said that they had used up all their moves. However, Dake still had 2 second-tier magic fairy in perfect condition. In Sarah's field, there was only the lonely jar of dead souls, except for the life's exclusion, which was of unknown use. At first glance, Dark Diamond had the advantage. However, it wasn't like Sarah had no room for a counterattack. At this moment, the second round. Tick. Battle Stage 3. 30s. Both of theirs SS with the 2 new magic cards in hand. Saraswati, who was frowning because the Living Mummy was taken away, finally relaxed her frown. What she needed the most now was a magic elf that could stand on the battlefield. If this magic fairy had the ability to restrict the Dream Demon, that would be even better. The Dream Demon was an undying species. It could pass through the life's prohibition, without any hindrance. It was the most threatening existence. 3 seconds, slightly more than that. In the blue team's summoning area, the light of summoning rapidly lit up. On the red team's platform, Dake also added 2 cards into his hand. Moon Pendant, Demon Fox. In addition to the remaining Bliss 3, he could use many battle tactics. But before summoning, he first gave the order to attack. After destroying the skeletal beauty snake, the Dream Demon gradually became excited. It immediately controlled the Nightmare Realm to expand. As for itself, it disappeared without a trace in front of everyone. Unable to freely traverse through the Nightmare Realm, the Fairy Ibu could only slowly advance towards the middle. Dake glanced at it and started summoning the Moon Pendant. At this moment, in the blue team's summoning area, Sarah's magic fairy gradually appeared. It was a familiar black cat, but it wasn't the 2-star Sphinx cat. Although this black cat was of the same breed as the Sphinx cat, it didn't have a single strand of hair on its body. Its eyes were golden, its skin was pitch black, its ears were huge and its tail was slender. However, it had 2 tails. At first glance, it looked like a mystical animal Nicomida, but it wasn't. But its strange appearance made Dake feel a sense of alarm. He didn't doubt that this 2-tailed black cat had a strange killing technique similar to the Sphinx cat. It could even surpass the class gap and be effective against the Dream Demon. The Dream Demon wasn't afraid of a strong attack. No matter how strong the opponent was, it would at most be a 1-for-1 exchange. But if the opponent used a purely controlling method, then the Dream Demon wouldn't be able to display its advantage. Thus, after Dake finished summoning the Moon Pendant, he immediately warned, "Don't be careless." As his voice fell, The figure of the dream demon appeared from the thick purple fog and suddenly pounced towards the life's prohibition. Pooh! But the illusion created by the dream demon instantly collapsed when it touched the black wall. On the other side of the life's prohibition, the two-tailed cat suddenly crouched down in a direction and let out a muffled roar. The dream demon, as true body, slowly appeared. It curiously looked at the two-tailed cat and wondered how this little cat could see it. Although cats were creatures with strong spiritual senses, it's useless. My dead spirit cat Nicomeda has spiritual eyes that can see through ghosts and ghosts. Sarah's voice faintly sounded, but it was obvious that she was talking to the dream demon. Talking to the magic fairy? In the eyes of the audience, this was completely baffling. But the teachers and students of the Shungmalian Academy didn't feel anything. Sarah was very sure that the dream demon could understand. Then the speech technique that was useless against normal magic fairies would be useful against the dream demon. As expected, the dream demon didn't hide its figure anymore. Instead, after the thick purple fog spread over, it personally stretched out its tentacles to test the life's prohibition. Then it squeezed out its tentacles from its body and passed through the life's prohibition without any obstruction. In the next moment, its entire body passed through. But when it looked left and right, it realized that the purple fog didn't follow it. It immediately remembered Dake's "Don't be careless," and immediately retreated. The nightmare realm couldn't pass through the life's prohibition. But the dream demon could. On the red team's platform, Dake suddenly caught a glimmer of light. This life's prohibition. Could it be an arena skill? His gaze couldn't pass through the black wall, so he couldn't see the dead spirit pot and dead spirit cat Nicomeda. Since the dream demon could pass through as it wished, he didn't hesitate anymore. Dream demon, go in. After issuing the command, he rapidly moved his lips and began to summon the demon fox. In the name of Dake Dimung, I summon the demon fox. When the demon fox appeared in the red team's summoning area, the dream demon had already received the command and once again charged into the life's prohibition. Then, in a flash, there was no sound. On the blue team's platform, Sarah's smile gradually widened, finally brimming with a smile. Next, what will you do? She knocked on the card table, softly muttering. Dake clearly felt that his connection with the dream demon hadn't been severed, and the dream demon's condition was almost perfect. Then it can only be controlled. Like being stepped on by the shadow stomp. Dake slightly muttered, then said, Fairy Ibu, you come. Me. Having already passed through the thick purple fog and arrived at the blue team's platform, Fairy Ibu raised her head and lightly called out, suddenly increasing her speed. Her base speed was slightly faster than the dream demon's. In the nightmare realm, her speed was slightly reduced, but not to an excessive extent. When she arrived in front of the life's prohibition, the demon fox was already on standby under Dake's command. Fairy Ibu raised her claws and forcefully pressed down, but was blocked outside as if she had touched a wall. Dake's brain was working furiously. Immediately following, he ordered, Bewitching voice. The life's prohibition was only a wall. It couldn't block a killing move that used sound as a medium. Hence, in a situation where he couldn't determine the strength of the life's prohibition, Bewitching voice was more useful than moon force. Moreover, Fairy Ibu was wearing the moon pendant. Under the effect of the moon pendant's killing move, Beauty of the Moon, the success rate of Bewitching voice would increase. Moreover, it was currently under the moonlight, so the effects of Beauty under the moon would be doubled. The only thing he needed to consider was whether the two-tailed black cat had a gender, and whether it was a male or a female. But no matter what, it would be quick to test it out. Dake stared intently at the field below. Fairy Ibu had already raised her head, a gentle light flowing in her eyes as if water was about to drip out. Heartsuit, heartsuit. Then she lightly opened her lips and began to sing the bewitching song. Bewitching voice. Killing move was activated. The surface of the life's prohibition began to ripple, and the bewitching body's bewitching effect was transformed into the form of sound and expanded. Dake still couldn't see the scene on the other side of the black wall. However, dead spirit Nicomeda and Fairy Ibu were of similar species, at least in terms of aesthetics. There was no difference. As long as dead spirit Nikomata was a male, even if it was a female, it would be difficult to remain indifferent. And once dead spirit Nikomata was bewitched, the dream demon would be able to take the opportunity to escape. Thick. Battle Stage 4. 30s. The third round passed quickly. Both sides didn't engage in any substantial exchanges, and the situation in the field was to push forward. However, when the sound of the switch sounded, both of them subconsciously drew their cards, and didn't pay attention to it. This was because the changes in the field were at a critical moment. Blue Team Summoning Area. Just as the dream demon passed through life's prohibition, it was stared at by dead spirit Nikomata's golden eyes, causing its body to be covered in a layer of golden light. That layer of light had the effect of bewitching Hoop, and it was extremely effective against undying species. Card name, Dead Spirit Nikomata. Type, Elf card. Level. Race, Undying species. Attribute, Dark, Magic 1500. Attack, 1300. Defense 300. Killing moves. Spirit Break Eyes, Undead Imprisonment. Second Tail's Life. Dead Spirit Nikomata, as the name suggested, was an undying species that transformed from a cat after it died. Because it grew a second tail during the transformation process, it became Nikomata. Nikomata was a two-tailed cat, and compared to a nine-tailed cat, it only had a second life. Therefore, Dead Spirit Nikomata had 2 lives. By the way, the Dead Spirit Nikomata that Sarah had created was conceptually a sphinx that had transformed after it died. Its attack was not bad, but its defense was very low. Its high magic meant that it was a magic elf that leaned toward skills. Moreover, it was an orange card. Among the 3 killing moves, Spirit Break Eyes could see through spirits and ghosts, and could occasionally see through illusions. It was a very practical killing move. As for Undead Imprisonment, it was a control skill that had an effect on the undying species and the specter type. If the target that needed to be imprisoned was a spirit type undying species, then the effect would be even more significant. Undead Imprisonment and Life's Prohibition were a perfect match. Even the Dream Demon was completely imprisoned in front of it. However, this cat was conceptually a male. Therefore, when Bewitching Voice was heard, the heartsuit symbol appeared in Dead Spirit Nikomata's golden eyes. When it used Undead Imprisonment, it had to stare at the other party with its eyes, and could not move away. This was similar to the Sphinx, as Shadow Stomp. Once it moved away, the imprisonment effect would be removed. Faced with Fairy Ivan's bewitching voice, Dead Spirit Nikomata did not have any ability to resist and immediately turned towards the direction of the voice. Then the Dream Demon immediately broke free from the imprisonment. Awa! It angrily opened its hands and pounced towards Dead Spirit Nikomata. How could a 3-star, Dead Spirit Nikomata, with only 300 points of defense block the attack of a 5-star magic elf? In the blink of an eye, Dead Spirit Nikomata was killed. However, it did not die completely. Life of the Second Tail. Activate. At the same time, there was another Dead Spirit Orb in the Dead Spirit Urn. This 3-star magic elf was one of Sarah's trump cards. Although it looked like a fragile urn, it actually had a strong defense that exceeded the 3-star limit, and was only slightly inferior to Kettle. Card name, Dead Spirit Urn. Type, Elf card. Level, ****. Race, Undying species. Attribute, Ghost type. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 0. Defense, 2000. Ultimate skill, Spirit in the Urn. Death Aura Explosion, 1000 points of magic power, 0 points of attack, and 2000 points of defense. The Dead Spirit Urn's 3 measurements were quite reasonable. Of the 2 ultimate skills, Spirit in the Urn was the ability to condense a Dead Spirit Orb in the urn. As long as a magic elf died in battle within the range, the Dead Spirit Urn could condense a Dead Spirit Orb in the urn. These Dead Spirit Orbs were all 1-star offerings with 0 attack and 0 defense. After the Dead Spirit Urn was summoned, there were 3 Dead Spirit Orbs. After the Skeletal Beauty Snake died, it condensed a 4th Dead Spirit Orb. Then Dead Spirit Nikomata's first life gave it a 5th Dead Spirit Orb. It was predictable. When Dead Spirit Nikomata A second life died, the dead spirit urn would condense a sixth dead spirit orb. This special effect was very similar to the flame furnace that Dake had designed. However, other than being an offering, these dead spirit orbs had other uses. They were the energy source of Dead Spirit Explosion. Dead Spirit Explosion was a self-destructing ultimate skill. Each Dead Spirit orb could increase the power of Dead Spirit Explosion by 10%. 6 Dead Spirit orbs could increase the power of Dead Spirit Explosion by 60%. The base power of Dead Spirit Explosion was already very high. If it was increased by 60%, even a second-tier magic elf could be blown to pieces. However, unless there was no other choice, Sarah would not use this ultimate skill. Dead Spirit Nikomata. S first life died and let out a meow from Dead Spirit's exclusion. Dream Demon also had a voice again. After Dake relaxed a little, he finally had the time to check the new magic cards that he had looted. He had only placed a total of 20 magic cards in the deck. He had started with 5, and now there were only 15 left. He only needed to touch these 15 magic cards 8 times to finish them. This meant that Dake could draw all the magic cards within 8 rounds. This 4th round was already halfway. Fantasy Beast. Ibu Bliss 2. Basically, Bliss 2 existed to upgrade Illusory Beast, Ibu to 2 stars. 2-star Fantasy Beast, Ibu could use Misty Field Bliss. Every Bliss magic elf could obtain an additional Body of Charm effect in Misty Field Bliss. However, there was no need to use Misty Field Bliss now. Instead, 2-star Ibu's imitation would occasionally have a miraculous effect. However, Dake did not waste his energy on Fantasy Beast, Ibu, as summoning. His hand was still on Bliss 3, ready to summon at any time. Meow. On the other side of Dead Spirit's exclusion, another mournful meow was heard. Dake was surprised by this, but the Dream Demon's painful wail followed closely behind. Come back, Dream Demon. Dake's heart tightened as he suddenly shouted. The Dream Demon heard the order and endured the pain as it came back from life's exclusion. Behind it, a grayish-white distorted shadow appeared. Its magic was rapidly decreasing by 100 points per second. It's Aspen's words of death. Dake immediately confirmed the existence of this secret ritual card. Aspen's words of death was a secret ritual card made according to the legend of the great alchemist, Aspen. It was also a secret ritual card that Sarah was used to. Even if Dake did not see what happened on the other side of life's exclusion, he could guess that after the Dream Demon killed Dead Spirit Tomato, it was attacked by Sarah's Curse of the Dead. With the Dream Demon's magic, it could not last more than 1 round. Too troublesome. Dake stared closely at life's exclusion that blocked his vision. If this black wall did not exist, he would definitely be able to command the Dream Demon more effectively, and even help it avoid Aspen's words of death. Sarah had hidden everything behind life's exclusion, making it impossible to guard against. Since it's like this, Fairy Ibu, use Moon Force. Me. Fairy Ibu immediately let out a high-pitched cry, and even its eyes became sharp. It also did not like this black wall, so it suddenly raised its head and began to gather moonlight. In the night sky, moonlight suddenly gathered into a beam and shone down on Fairy Ibu's body. Its body was bathed in moonlight, and it could not help but feel a bit more mysterious. Moon Force was originally an extremely powerful sure-kill skill, and now that it was bathed in moonlight, its power was doubled, and it emitted an extremely dangerous energy wave. Fairy Ibu opened its mouth, and pure moonlight quickly condensed into a ball in its mouth. It then aimed at life's exclusion, and suddenly shot it out. Boom. Moon Force's beam of light fiercely poured into life's exclusion. This wall of darkness finally began to violently fluctuate. However, after Moon Force had been released for half a second, life's exclusion had only become a bit thinner. On the blue team's platform, Sarah's smile was extremely bright. Life's exclusion could last for 3 minutes. Within these 3 minutes, unless it was a sure kill skill from the 3rd tier or above, it would be extremely difficult to break through. And with these 3 minutes and 6 rounds of buffering, she could very steadily draw and summon her trump card. In the name of Saraswati, I summon Death Mummy. Card name, Death Mummy. Type, Fairy card, Level, Race, Undying, Attribute, Dark, Magic Power, 1000, Attack, 100, Defense, 1600, Sure Kill Skill, Feign Death. With the summon of another 3-star fairy, Sarah's lineup was once again expanded. Death Mummy and Life Mummy were both fairy cards that Sarah was used to using. She would usually order the Death Mummy to stuff the magic ball into its abdomen for protection, and during crucial moments, she would also use it as a stable sacrifice for sacrificial summoning. Moreover, the Death Mummy, with Feign Death, had 2 lives, just like Death Spirit Cat. It could provide the Death Spirit Jar, with 2 Death Spirit Balls. After summoning the Death Mummy, Sarah finally began her sacrificial summoning. However, her sacrificial summoning was not as good as Dake's, and it took a longer time to chant. During this time, Dake had already summoned Bliss 3. Bathed in the light of Bliss 3, the Fox Demon was evolving into a 9-tailed fox. Another plan flashed through Dake's mind, but he quickly discarded it. Originally, he wanted to let the Fox Demon transform into a Dream Demon and disguise itself as an undying species to obtain the ability to pass through life's exclusion. However, he was already extremely impatient with life's exclusion. Evolve. 9-tailed fox. The Bliss insignia had already appeared on the Fox Demon's forehead. The pink light surrounding its body made it emit a dense and seductive aura. Its body structure underwent a drastic change under the light of evolution. When the light of evolution dissipated, a golden fox with 9 tails had already appeared in the Red Side's summoning area. The 9-tailed fox's tail and feet were burning with blue flames. In between its eyebrows and limbs, there were Tai Chi patterns that symbolized Tao. It was like a divine beast that guarded temples, shrines, and other places. After it evolved, Dake gave the order without hesitation: destroy that wall. After evolving, the 9-tailed fox was already a 6-star. The 9 tails on its back suddenly stood up, and the blue flames on its tail quickly condensed into ghost fire jades. It raised its head and let out a soft cry, and the 9 ghost fire jades were controlled by it to form a ring of 9 fireballs. Then it swung its tail, and the 9 spinning ghost fire jades shot towards life's exclusion. Rumble. The 9 ghost fire jades exploded together, and the pitch-black wall was on the verge of collapsing. Life's exclusion became extremely transparent. Through the translucent black wall, Dake could finally see the blue side's summoning area clearly again. His eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice, "Dream Demon, get ready." There was a huge difference between the sacrificial summoning spell and the normal summoning spell. When Sarah began to use the sacrificial summoning spell, Dake immediately sensed it. As soon as he finished speaking, Sarah's sacrificial summoning spell was completed. Although the sacrificial summoning process was out of his expectations, the dead mummy was not offered as a sacrifice. A total of 5 white lights suddenly shot out from the ancient clay jar, and the white lights shot out from the magic card in Sarah's hand converged in the air. A huge sacrificial summoning spell was created. Saraswati had finally summoned a second-tier magic fairy for the first time since the start of the duel, and the Dream Demon finally had a blood bag that could sustain its life. Therefore, both contestants smiled at the same time. The magic fairy that jumped out of the sacrificial summoning spell was a subhuman with a wolf head and a human body. However, this werewolf did not emit a bloodthirsty aura. Its fur was snow-white, its eyes were gentle, and its body was covered in a snow-white sacrificial robe. It was a werewolf priest that was almost impossible to find in the werewolf community. Card name: White Wolf Priest. Type: Fairy card. Level: Race: Subhuman. Attribute: Light. Magic power: 2300. Attack: 2100. Defense: 1500. Ultimate skills: Fairy Wolf Self-Healing. The light attribute: White Wolf Priest was an extremely lofty existence among Sarah's magic guiding fairies. However, Sarah was still a student who had just entered her second year. She didn't have much choice in choosing her magic guide fairy. A 5-star magic fairy card was necessary to increase the limit of the card deck. Moreover, the White Wolf Priest's 3 measurements and ultimate skills were not bad. Its 1,500 points of defense could also allow it to resist almost all the normal attacks of the first-tier magic fairies. The ultimate skill Fairy Wolf could summon 2 3-star fairy wolves. The ultimate skill Self-Healing could allow itself and the summoned fairy wolves to obtain the effect of high-speed self-healing. Whether it was in an adventure or a duel, it could be used as a front row. Of course, as a blood bag. Its 2,300 points of magic could also extend the life of the Dream Demon for another 10 seconds. Almost at the moment the White Wolf Priest was summoned, the Dream Demon used its ultimate skill, Pain Sharing, on it. Then without hesitation it rushed past Life's Prohibition and pounced on the Death Soul Jar. The White Wolf Priest's sacrificial summoning had already exposed the use of the Death Soul Jar. Without needing Dake to say anything, the Dream Demon changed its target. Sarah's expression changed and she hurriedly shouted, "Protect the Death Soul Jar." The White Wolf Priest, whose magic had suddenly decreased by nearly half, was stunned on the spot, allowing the Dream Demon to pass by it. However, the Death Mummy, with 100% proficiency, shot out the bandages on both sides of its body, wrapped around the Death Soul Jar, and pressed it into its stomach. Even though the Death Mummy's defense was actually lower than the Death Soul Jar, it still did so. Then the Death Mummy was killed by the Dream Demon in an instant. Inside the Death Soul Jar, there was an additional ball of death. During this process, the 4th round quietly changed. The duel entered the 5th round. The smile on Sarah's face had completely disappeared. As she drew the card, she issued a new order. The White Wolf Priest immediately summoned the Fairy Wolf, and then released the ultimate skill Self-Healing. Its magic began to recover quickly, and it also blocked in front of the magic ball. As for Sarah, she once again chanted the sacrificial summoning spell. A 2nd-tier magic guide fairy with more than half of its magic power. A 1st-tier magic guide fairy that can't be used as a sacrifice, but can store 2 1-star sacrifices. With this as a sacrifice, magic guide summoning. Rumble. The raging blue flames turned into the shape of a dragon and fiercely bombarded the Life's Prohibition. The black wall, which had already become transparent, became even thinner again. The 9-tailed fox raised its head and let out a long cry. The blue flames all over its body condensed into a huge energy ball, and a terrifying energy fluctuation spread out. When this Tengu was released, Fairy Ibu in front of the wall had already retreated. The huge energy ball bombarded the Life's Prohibition without any obstruction, and then it loudly exploded. A flame-like blue circle of light instantly spread out. An extremely terrifying mushroom cloud soared into the sky. The deafening explosion made the audience cry out in alarm. The wall of the Life's Prohibition was completely shattered by this terrifying explosion. Then, the blue summoning area behind it was also completely swallowed by the aftermath of the explosion. But in this explosion, the sacrificial summoning formation stubbornly flickered with light. Sarah nervously watched all of this. The sudden change made her unsure whether the sacrificial summoning was successful or not. Good morning. It's yet another day of failure, **********. 6/ But I suddenly realized that I've already written more than 180,000 words this month. I've already finished writing a month's worth of words. I don't know if the bounty can exceed 100 chapters. Anyway, I'm begging for more votes. Chapter 605. However, Sarah quickly felt the connection between the magic fairy and herself, and immediately felt relieved. Then, she immediately drew her cards, which increased the number of cards in her hand from 1 to 3. At the same time, Dake also drew his cards, increasing his hand from 2 to 4. Magic Beast, Ibu, Bliss 2, Magic Beast, Ever-Changing, Pride. However, both sides did not pay attention to the magic cards in their hands, but instead focused on the situation. At this moment, Fairy Ibu had already retreated to the center. 1 second to remember https://m. VIP can't you? VIP. After releasing the Tengu, the 9-tailed fox was panting heavily. The blue flames on its body had already disappeared without a trace. The first dragon egg was still in the state of being unhatched. The purple fog above the arena had been washed away by the shockwaves of the explosion. As for the nightmare realm, it also dissipated along with the fog. Not only did the nine-tailed fox's Tengu destroy the life's prohibition that only a third-tier magic fairy could destroy, it even swallowed the entire blue summoning area. When the smoke and dust from the explosion gradually dispersed, the blue summoning area was finally exposed. Dake Diming's dream demon had already disappeared without a trace. It was unknown if it was killed by the shockwaves of the explosion, or if it was cursed to death by the Aspen's whispers of death. As for Saraswati's death mummy, after dying, it had activated a sure kill skill called False Death, and once again condensed its body from the drifting magic, before being destroyed by the explosion once again. Before dying for the second time, it chose to protect the more important magic conducting ball. As a result, the death soul jar that had lost its protection was completely destroyed. Although before it was destroyed, the death soul jar had 2 more death soul orbs, but once those 2 death soul orbs rolled out, they scattered with the wind, not leaving behind any residue. As for the blue magic conducting ball, under the protection of the death mummy, it successfully withstood the shockwaves of the explosion. Although the surface of the barrier of life was still covered in cracks, it did not completely shatter. Sarah pointed with her finger, and the blue magic conducting ball was guided by her magic and flew into the sky. On the ground of the blue side summoning area, only the successfully summoned third-tier magic guide sprite was left. Even though it was the weakest 7 stars in the third tier, its existence still brought about a great sense of oppression. Sarah's eyes were brimming with confidence as she said to Dake, "Although it's not as good as yours, this is the strongest trump card I've created so far. I wonder if it can surprise you?" Dake looked at the 7-star magic elf and said indifferently, "Speaking of surprises, your life's prohibition has already brought me enough surprises." In comparison, the surprise that life's end brought him was even greater. It was hard to imagine that the defensive spell that required the nine-tailed fox to release the Tengu to shatter it came from a second-year student. Compared to that, the surprise brought by a 7-star magic conducting elf was nothing more than this. In the blue side summoning area, the 7-star magic guide sprite was standing straight. It was a tall mummy that was at least 3 meters tall. The mummy's body was wrapped in slightly messy snow-white bandages. Whether it was its legs or feet, they were extremely thin and long. Only its fingers, toes, ankles, eyes, ears, and a few other parts of its face were exposed. However, the parts that were exposed were like charcoal, with a hint of charcoal red in the darkness. It was like charcoal that was still burning. Even though its body was thin and long, its shoulders were extremely wide and protruded outwards. Its head was the same. The top of its head was flat and protruded outwards like horns. Card name, Lava Mummy. Type, Sprite card. Level, Race, Undying Species. Attribute, Dark/Fire. Magic, 3000. Attack, 3200. Defense, 2400. Sure kill skills, Flame Fist, Lava Reincarnation, Mummy's Wrath. An undying species that possessed both dark and fire attributes. A lava mummy that was transformed from a lava troll. Even though it was Dake's first time seeing this magic guide sprite, he had some understanding of the lava mummy. The so-called lava mummy was originally a creature that was pushed into the boiling mouth of a volcano. After being soaked in lava and burned, it was fished out and bandaged. Different creatures could create different lava mummies. If the conditions were met, it could be revived through sacrificial rituals and other means, which was to refine it into an undying species. Within the demon race's army, there was once an extremely terrifying army that was formed by lava mummies. They were undying and indestructible. Wherever they went, it would be like a drought that dried up the water source and prohibited all living creatures. The lava mummy that Sarah had summoned was at least at the commander level. Even though this lava mummy was a 7-star magic guide sprite, among its 3 attributes, only its attack exceeded the 6-star peak value. However, it was an orange card that possessed 3 sure kill skills. Since Sarah had made it her trump card, there must be something special about it that no one knew about. Dake tried his best to be cautious. Then, with a light tap of his finger, he immediately dismissed the 9-tailed fox's summon. Before the 9-tailed fox degenerated into a demon fox due to its weakness, He stored it back into the magic guide card. After releasing the Tengu, this magic guide sprite had basically lost its combat ability. It would only be a distraction if it stayed on the field. Thus, only Fairy Ibu and First Dragon Egg were left on the field. Compared to before, Dake's situation was obviously at a disadvantage. However, he was not anxious at all. Lava Mummy Flame Fist. Sarah's command suddenly rang out. The 3-meter-tall lava mummy suddenly shook its arms, and dark red flames ignited from its fists to its shoulders with a boom sound. It was obvious that the flame fist must have given it additional magic damage. However, the lava mummy's usage of the flame fist was still unexpected. After receiving the order, it suddenly threw a punch in the direction of Fairy Ibu. From its fist, a gigantic flame fist suddenly shot out. Rumble. Following the dispelling of the nightmare realm, Ivan the fairy regained its agility. With a light leap, it dodged the flaming fist. However, when the flaming fist landed on the ground, it still produced a powerful explosion. Before Ivan the fairy could breathe a sigh of relief, the lava mummy had already punched out a second time. With every punch, the flames on the furnace mummy's arms dimmed a little. However, the lava mummy only threw out 2 punches before it suddenly sped up and rushed out. Ivan the fairy was unable to completely dodge the second flaming fist, and was blasted away by the shockwave. Although it successfully landed on its 4 limbs, it was still in a sorry state. Awoo! With its 4 limbs on the ground, it let out a threatening roar towards the lava mummy. However, with bewitching voice and moon force in cooldown, it didn't have any good methods to counterattack. Lava mummy, avoid contact, use flame fist to kill it. Sarah immediately gave an even more detailed command. In the blink of an eye, the lava mummy had crossed the center line and charged into the red half of the summoning zone. An even more ferocious flame gathered on its right arm. When it charged in front of Ivan the fairy, the flame on its right arm was like a layer of flaming armor, completely covering its arm. As the saying goes, this was the real deal flame fist. With this punch, Ivan the fairy was unable to block it. Sarah was already on guard against the bewitching body, causing her to be unable to display her charm. She could only watch as the flames burned away her vision. Roar! From the red summoning zone, a majestic dragon roar suddenly sounded. The curve at the corner of Saraswati's mouth gradually increased, but in that instant, her expression suddenly changed. The magic absorption spell, magic card was still floating in front of her, continuously absorbing the magic power of the primordial dragon egg to replenish itself. But that dragon egg had still hatched. The dragon has been born. The commentator, Zach Wilson, shouted with an impassioned expression, driving the atmosphere of the scene to its highest point. Dake put down the pride card in his hand. Pouring the power of the pride into the primordial dragon egg could very stably hatch a 7-star green eyes white dragon. Although Sarah's magic absorption spell could be considered the nemesis of almost all magic elves, it was only a small water pipe compared to the energy that the pride had poured into it in an instant. It simply didn't have time to drain the power of the dragon egg before that green-eyed white dragon broke out of its shell with a dragon roar. 7-star against 7-star, who will have the last laugh? After the green eyes white dragon broke out of its shell, its body rapidly grew to the size of an adult. Its wide wings suddenly flapped, and a violent airflow was generated downwards, pushing its huge body into the sky. When this noble white dragon with green veins all over its body circled in the air, the audience outside the arena was attracted to it. What a beautiful white dragon! Some people were amazed, some people were praising it. The 5th round passed quickly. Card name, Green Eyes White Dragon. Type, Elven card. Level, Race, Dragon. Attribute, Light/Dragon. Magic power, 3000. Attack, 3500. Defense, 3000. Ultimate skills, Dragon Egg Transformation, Green Eyes Incarnation, Destructive White Light Spray, Hall of Light. In the blink of an eye, the Green Eyes White Dragon swooped down from the sky. However, it didn't land on the ground, but hovered right in front of the red team's platform. Green Eyes White Dragon, Destructive White Light Spray. The noble white dragon didn't need claws and teeth. Dake's calm voice hid his uncontrollable excitement. To be able to summon the Green Eyes White Dragon on the duel stage was already a memorable day for him. If it was the Green Eyes White Dragon, then it would be even better. Roar. The Green Eyes White Dragon raised its head and roared, and then a blazing white light gathered in its bloody mouth, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a huge ball of light that emitted a terrifying aura. Sure kill skill. Destructive white light spray. Roar. The Green Eyes White Dragon lowered its head, and the destructive white light shot out from its mouth towards the lava mummy on the ground. They were both 7-star elves, but the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Cross defense. The lava mummy crossed its arms, and the flames on its arms converged to form a flame barrier. However, the flame barrier was broken in the blink of an eye. The Green Eyes White Dragon's attack power was as high as 3,500 points, and this destructive white light spray was like an extension of its attack power. Each shot consumed 100 points of mana, and it took 3 seconds to charge up. There was no cooldown. After being hit by the destructive white light spray, the damage caused by the destructive white light spray couldn't be recovered. After the lava mummy's defense was broken, its mana dropped sharply. Sala realized something, and her expression changed slightly. She quickly looked at the cards in her hand. Out of the 3 cards in her hand, one was the Sphinx Cat, one was the Fantasy Beast, Bennu Bird, and the last one was a special item that wasn't used right now. Her brain turned quickly, and she quickly thought, this kind of ultimate skill has a long cooldown. As long as the lava mummy can withstand it, that Green Eyes White Dragon will still land on the ground. Unless... Sala suddenly looked at the magic ball in front of her, and her expression changed drastically. She hurriedly said, "Defend." The lava mummy immediately retreated. With a point of her finger, she adjusted the magic ball's position so that it wouldn't be hit directly by the Green Eyes White Dragon's attack. Her magic ball was bombarded by the aftermath of the explosion, and the life enchantment was on the verge of breaking. It couldn't rely on any heavy hits. However, if she wanted to launch a counterattack against Dake, she needed another magic card that could make the magic fairy fly. Now that the 5th round is over, starting with 5 cards, for rounds of 8 cards, a total of 13 cards, and 7 cards in the deck, the probability of drawing it in the next round is... Sala quickly calculated the results and made up her mind. Her deck was a standard 20 cards, which greatly reduced the probability of drawing a useless magic card. Tick. Before the lava mummy returned to the blue side summoning area, the 30-second countdown for the 5th round had ended. Battle stage 6? 30s. But at that moment, from the mouth of the Green Eyes White Dragon, a white ball of light that emitted a terrifying aura gathered again. Destructive white light spray. Dake Dimming suddenly pointed. The second destructive white light spray pierced through the arena. The left shoulder of the lava mummy disappeared permanently. Looking at the lava mummy's 900 points of magic power disappear in an instant, Sala's fingers couldn't help but tremble. But when she raised her head, she saw the destructive white light spray gathering in the mouth of the Green Eyes White Dragon again. At that moment, the audience outside the arena was in an uproar. The magic fairy's ultimate skills usually had a relatively long cooldown. A skill like this that didn't have a cooldown and only needed to charge up was very rare and almost impossible to see. Moreover, it was such a terrifying ultimate skill. Facing such a situation, before Sala could clearly see the magic card that she had drawn, she knew very clearly that she couldn't wait any longer. Lava Reincarnation, Fury of the Mummy. 2 consecutive commands were issued. The lava mummy's body was like burning coal emitting a high-temperature ray. The snow-white bandage was burning from the inside out. Gradually, hot lava began to flow on its body that was exposed to the air. The dark fire suppressed in the body rushed to the top of its head like a flame rushing to the crown. Lava Reincarnation turned the immortal body into an elemental body, gaining a part of physical immunity and high-speed self-healing for a short time, increasing the power of the fire element's ultimate skills. Fury of the Mummy removed the bandage and completely released the dark fire suppressed in the body, increasing the attack and defense by a large margin. It also refreshed the cooldown of the Flame Fist, increasing its effect. Sarah's lava mummy's 3 surekill skills were very practical. Especially, lava reincarnation. It could allow the lava mummy to gain super fast self-healing ability for a short period of time. Together with the increased defense of Mummy's Wrath, it could make the lava mummy truly immortal. And these 2 ultimate skills could increase the effect of the fire element, Flame Fist. The combination of the 2 made the Flame Fist unprecedentedly powerful. However, when the lava mummy activated these 2 ultimate skills, Sala suddenly realized that the lava mummy's mana had only recovered a little, and then it stopped at 1,700 points. It could not increase anymore. The original 3,000 points of mana seemed to have been eaten away by a large part. It could not recover its high-speed self-healing ability, and it could not recover to full. Despite the shock in his heart, Sala knew that he could not think too much. Use Flame Fist on it. The first time he crossed his defense, it did indeed offset part of the white light. If he used Flame Fist on it, it might be possible to eliminate it. Sala did not think that the green-eyed white dragon could continuously shoot out white light. There must be a limit. Boom. In the blink of an eye, the burning right fist of the lava mummy collided with the destructive white light of the green-eyed white dragon. With a terrifying explosion, the fire energy on the lava mummy's fist was scattered, but it also blocked the white light. The greatly improved attack and defense allowed it to successfully resist the attack. However, the green-eyed white dragon, which had shot out the 3rd destructive white light, opened its mouth again and gathered the terrifying light attribute energy. Sala's eyelids twitched, and he took the opportunity to look at the magic card in his hand. In the 2 new magic cards that he had obtained, there was a magic elf card named Batwing Demon. Card name, Batwing Demon. Type, elf card. Level, race, devil. Attribute, dark. Mana, 500. Attack, 0. Defense, 0. Ultimate skills, parasitism, stealth. The Batwing Demon was only a 1-star, and it did not have the slightest attack and defense ability. In the ranks of the demons, it was even lower than the Little Devil. However, it had a natural ability that the Little Devil did not have. Not only could it parasitize a strong species in the form of a bat wing, but it could also help it to hide. In the name of Saraswati I summon. Boom! Before he could successfully summon it, the 4th destructive white light spray had already shot out. The lava mummy stood in front of the blue square magic ball, and did not retreat half a step, and once again swung the flame fist. As long as the flames were not extinguished, the flame fist would not be extinguished. In Sala's deck, the lava mummy was the absolute core trump card, and there was no substitute for it. This meant that once the lava mummy fell, it would be time for her to fall as well. The only chance for her to do so was to reverse the situation and destroy the red square magic ball's life enchantment. However, just like how she had moved the blue square magic ball behind the lava mummy, Dake had also moved the blue square magic ball behind the green-eyed white dragon. With Dake's vigilance, she would not be able to succeed. On the red square's platform, Dake looked at the 2 new magic cards that he had obtained, but he did not summon them yet. Scabbard weapon form. Bliss 3 Moon. Bliss 3 Moon could allow Illusory Beast Ibu to evolve into Moon Ibu. Scabbard weapon form. Could transform into a fairy form. He could summon 2 second-tier magic fairies at an extremely fast speed. However, these 2 magic guide fairies couldn't do anything in front of the lava mummy. At this time, he chose to believe in the green-eyed white dragon. It could even be said that, when he hatched the green-eyed white dragon, he already had the ability to end this duel at any time. This was not arrogance. Destructive white light spray. The green-eyed white dragon shot out white light for the 5th time, and the lava mummy once again used Flame Fist to counter. However, after this collision, the flames on its body were already showing signs of extinguishing. The Batwing Demon then descended from the sky. Behind the lava mummy's back, 2 pitch-black bat wings suddenly spread out. Then, without hesitation, it flapped its wings and flew high, gathering the last of its dark flames on its fist. Use Flame Fist on it. Sarah slammed the table, slamming all the remaining cards in her hand onto the table. She stared at the green-eyed white dragon that opened its mouth to gather white light once again. The destructive white light spray. After destructive white light spray, had already shaken her judgment. The lava mummy flew faster and faster, like a huge burning meteor. However, Dake Dimming on the red team's platform still spoke in an extremely calm tone. Destructive white light spray. Roar. The green-eyed white dragon shot out its sixth destructive white light spray at the lava mummy. The blazing white destructive white light spray and the pitch-black undying flames collided at an extremely close distance, as if the entire world was going to be divided into black and white. A terrifying explosion resounded throughout the entire stadium. Everyone's vision was swallowed up. Pooh, eating melons is killing me. 7 slash? But there are too many melons, too big. Chapter 606. Boom. When the sound wave stopped, the dust fell to the ground. The white light swallowed the black fire. The lava mummy's black fire was completely extinguished, and the destructive white light swallowed its right arm, causing its already plummeting magic to worsen. The green-eyed white dragon flew in the air, looking down coldly at the lava mummy that was blown back by its breath, and slowly opened its mouth again. The rapidly condensing white ball of light in its mouth made Saraswati, who was on the blue side's platform, feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. It can actually shoot again. Whether it was the students, professors, or the audience outside, none of them could have imagined that the green-eyed white dragon could shoot so well. Sarah took a deep breath and slowly picked up the cards on the table. Even if her heart had already sunk to the bottom, giving up just like that was not her style. Thinking about it carefully, it seemed that from the moment the adult white dragon hatched from the dragon egg, everything had already gone out of control. Website: https://m. But can't you? VIP. Even though the adult white dragon was only 1 star higher than the young cyanide dragon, the additional star represented an increase in size, as well as the ability to continuously shoot out the destructive white beam spray. All of these made the young cyanide WYRM much more powerful than the young cyanide dragon. With the destructive white light spray, the green-eyed white dragon had completely turned into a cannon, becoming the nightmare of the low-star magic guide fairies. Even the lava mummy, a 7-star magic guide fairy that could gain near immortality for a short period of time, could not withstand the continuous shooting. Battle Stage 7. 30s tick. The moment the turn changed, Sarah drew her cards again. There were not many magic guide cards left in the deck, and Sarah was very clear about the magic guide cards she could draw. Her brain was working to the limit, trying to find the last chance to break out of this hopeless situation. Boom. The lava mummy finally fell after countless shots from the green-eyed white dragon. Sarah only temporarily summoned a 3-star magic guide fairy from the blue side's summoning area. Then that 3-star magic guide fairy was instantly swallowed by the destructive white light that pierced through the entire arena. The destructive white light spray of the green eyes white dragon was able to unleash the full power of its attack. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for a 3-star magic guide fairy to survive the destruction beam. After the 3-star magic elf was killed, the green eyes inferior white dragon opened its mouth again. As the white ball of light once again gathered in his mouth, a faint aura of despair quietly spread out. The audience outside the arena seemed to have felt this aura and slowly quieted down. Sala did not manage to complete her next summon before the green-eyed white dragon fired another shot. Thus, the green eyes inferior white dragon set its sights on the blue magic ball. With this last ray of destructive white light, the already cracked life enchantment sphere shattered like a weathered rock. Phew! Looking at the number representing her HP reaching 0, Sarah actually felt a faint sense of relief. However, she quickly closed her eyes and patted her cheeks hard to pull herself together. There wasn't a single expert who didn't walk on the sharp blade of failure. She couldn't fall on the path of growth. On the contrary, it was a very fortunate thing to have someone who could keep up with her on the path of growth. Sarah took a deep breath and arranged the magic cards in her hand. The referee's whistle sounded. The battle has ended. Winner, Dake Dimung. This intense and suffocating duel has finally come to an end. Contestant Dark Diamond has fought 3 matches today and won all 3 matches, earning a total of 9 points. Compared to December this year, we'll definitely see him standing on the stage of the top 8. The commentator, Zach Wilson, relaxed his tense nerves and said with a sigh. In addition, although Saraswati lost this duel, her performance was also very amazing. It's hard to see such a high-level battle in a second-year competition. She's worthy of being the successor of the Sage of the Ancients, and her performance was very beautiful. The audience outside the arena applauded loudly, and many people began to shout Dake Diming's name. They didn't forget that the designer of the battle simulation game was also called Dake Dimung. In this situation, Dake didn't even need to deliberately promote it. The audience further deepened their impression of the battle simulation and became more and more interested in it. After all, they could see at a glance that Dake Dimung was bound to become a rising star in the battle world. And the battle simulation game props were like the surroundings of this future star duelist. It was as if the battle simulation was suddenly given some other value that had nothing to do with the game itself. In the front row of the audience, Arvette was already whispering to the 2 viscountesses beside her. Although she kept talking about her baby's strengths, the 2 viscountesses didn't get tired of listening, and even joined in the discussion. Next to them, the eldest Prince Charles frowned slightly and let out a helpless sigh. He didn't come here to watch anyone's battle today. It was rare for him to have some free time, so he came here to watch a battle to relax. After all, there weren't many large-scale entertainment venues in the kingdom. He was now in the crucial period of establishing his character, so it was impossible for him to go to those random places for entertainment. Therefore, the Shungmalian Battle Hall became a better place to go. But after watching the opening ceremony of the Silver Cup and the subsequent battles, he didn't relax. Instead, he became more worried. On one hand, it was because the growth of the Valkyrie's son was too terrifying. On the other hand, it was because of the battle simulation. The kingdom was in a very special era. The most basic problem of people's livelihood was solved by the explosive growth of magical technology. In a very short time, everyone has enough to eat was achieved, which was difficult to achieve in the past. As for the desire to keep warm, once people had enough to eat, they would instinctively chase after further satisfaction. The so-called Renaissance came from this. People thirsted for spiritual entertainment and needed more cultural materials to fill the emptiness in their hearts after the war. Therefore, all kinds of literature and entertainment rose up. But in this, the rise of magical duels played a crucial role in guiding this. Because it was common knowledge that the reason why the war was won was because of the strength of the magisters. Therefore, after the war, people's yearning for powerful magisters shifted to the pursuit of magical duels. This was the reason why people were so passionate about magic duels. The battle simulation was a simplified version of the magical duels that existed for all people. Not only could it inherit people's good impression of magical duels, but it also greatly lowered the threshold for people to participate. Moreover, it had the authority of the Shungmalian Academy's certification. Therefore, the rise of the battle simulation was almost inevitable. Charles always felt that he could foresee the future. Behind the battle simulation was Dake Dimung. To him, it meant that it was the Valkyrie's business. The Valkyrie was already very difficult to deal with, and now she had such a business with explosive commercial potential. Once she rose to power, she might be able to influence the public opinion from many sides. If the Valkyrie's power eventually developed to the point where it could overwhelm the saint, it would be a huge nightmare for him. No, I have to think of something. Charles looked up at the chair and closed his eyes. Headache. While the spectators outside the arena were having different thoughts, the 2 contestants on the arena began to talk. Your white dragon is too good at shooting. Sarah couldn't help but complain, her voice carrying a rare weakness. Dake knew that this was the time to encourage her, so he said, your curses and secret methods have also opened my eyes. That lava mummy activated a high-speed self-healing surekill skill at the end, right? Yes. Sarah nodded. Dake laughed. Then I'm considered lucky. The Green Eyes White Dragon is able to counter this surekill skill. But speaking of which, it's all thanks to your mana absorption curse. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen to hatch the Green Eyes White Dragon. Of course, even if the Green Eyes White Dragon was hatched, he could still turn it back into a dragon egg and hatch it again. But this process was more complicated, and there was also the risk of the dragon egg being broken. Sarah didn't dwell too much on this point. Instead, she suddenly smiled and said, "At this time, should I say something fierce? By the way, where's your white cat?" She clearly remembered the time when she was teased by the white cat during the first grade competition. She also wanted to say something harsh, but in the end, she couldn't say anything useful. In the end, she just casually said, "I won't forget today's humiliation." Now that a year had passed, she was once again defeated on the duel stage, but she was no longer as irrational as before. She was satisfied with her growth and found some of her mood again. But after being asked, Dake thought of something and said helplessly, "It's not in this set of cards." He had clearly stored all the magical elves except the ancient beast into the cards, but in the end, only 20 of them were used. And this was the first time he tried to build a deck with bliss as the theme, but in the end, he relied on pride to achieve victory. If he thought about it carefully, this really couldn't be considered a successful attempt. But in the 3 duels in a row, he still felt a sense of smoothness that he didn't have before. The reason why this set of bliss cards didn't perform well wasn't because of the concept, but simply because there was a lack of more series of cards. For example, there was no bliss. Since there's no problem with the concept, what's next is the accumulation of time. Dake lowered his head and thought. When he looked up again, Sarah had already left the stage, and the host, senior sister Judy, also teleported to his side. "The third duel tonight." A gentle whisper like a spring breeze blew into Dake's ear, and he hurriedly took half a step back. With a straight face he said, 3 minutes. Senior sister Judy quietly rolled her eyes, turned to the audience and said, "As you can see, Dake Dimming, who is standing on the duel stage for the 3rd time today, has once again won the duel. And we will also conduct a post-match interview with him for the 3rd time. I know that everyone is very curious about Dake Dimming and wants to know more about him. But for some non-public information, we need the person's permission to mention it. So tonight I want to try a new game. Let Dake Dimming control the question segment. What do you think?" After the audience outside the field digested this paragraph carefully, they suddenly shouted with great interest. Just as Judy said, they were very curious about Dake Dimming. Since the host couldn't casually ask questions, wouldn't it be fine to let the contestants answer their own questions? This was truly a genius idea. Winky face. But amidst the tidal wave of cheers, Dake looked at senior sister Judy as if she was an idiot. Which idiot would ask questions that would cause them trouble if they answered their own questions? For example, he didn't want to be called the Valkyrie's son, like White. If he had to choose one, he would rather be called the father of mock duels. No, this asking and answering your own questions also had its benefits. Since his identity as the designer of the mock duel had been exposed, he might as well use this opportunity to announce this matter. At the same time, he could also advertise the mock duel. Now in every duel hall around the world, there were already duel plates, cards, and cards hidden in model eggs being sold. This first sales data would be used as a consideration for how much resources should be invested in promoting the duel. After all, the so-called guesses, judgments, and premonitions were not supported by real data. The market was ever-changing, and only when one entered the market would they have specific data. If Dake did the right thing, he might be able to pull in a wave of sales. He thought for a moment and made up his mind. Then, he took the microphone from Judy with a smile and faced the audience. He said, "First of all, let me introduce myself. This is Dake Dimming, 2nd year of the Shungmalian Academy, Noble House. Many of you should have heard of the surname, Dimming, so I won't say too much. Since senior sister Judy wants me to answer my own questions, I'll start with the questions. Question 1. What do you think of this duel?" First of all, this is a question that needs to be asked from the perspective of the host. Since this is the post-match interview of the winner of the duel, this is the basics of the basics. As a duelist, my impression of this duel is quite good. It ignited my passion as a duelist and gave me an emotion called excitement. One of the greatest joys of a duel is facing the unknown. Contestant Saraswati brought me too many surprises. I like it very much. Saraswati, who had just walked off the stage, suddenly stopped in her tracks. But soon her ears turned red as she realized that she had misunderstood. Seriously, what was I thinking? After Dake quickly finished his thoughts on the duel, he asked the second question. Question 2. Were you really the one who designed the duel simulation game? Dark glanced at senior sister Judy, who was smiling beside him, and said, I know everyone is very interested in the authenticity of this duel. Here, I want to answer that it's real. However, the simulated duel was born out of the magic duel. It's not entirely true that I designed it myself. I've only simplified and improved the rules of the magic duel based on the foundation of the magic duel, adding in more strategic elements. After all, the duel simulation is different from the magic duel. It needs some additional elements to expand the depth, such as the graveyard. In the duel simulation, the graveyard's existence makes it easier for us to resurrect the destroyed magic fairies. Various magic cards that can be resurrected after death will also be released in the future. As for the design of the cards, although most of the magic fairies have prototypes, and most of them are magic fairies that were shown by the students of the Shungmalian Academy, there are also many cards that were created by me personally. I can add some effects that are difficult to achieve in the duel simulation cards, which is very interesting. The 3 minutes of the interview quickly passed, and Dake was still talking tirelessly. Judy didn't interrupt, and the audience listened attentively. After a few minutes, the design of the simulated duel was slowly revealed in Dark's words. If one had to put it into words, this was actually not difficult. After all, this was a duel game for everyone. Lowering the difficulty level was the core point from the very beginning. The real difficulty was creating something from nothing. By the time Dake finished his speech, the audience was already in awe. They no longer doubted that he was the designer. Whether it was Dake or Mock Duel, they were gradually labeled with different labels. Dake's title as the duelist gradually came into being. XX Designer. Although it lacked a descriptive suffix, the audience clearly preferred to call him the designer of the simulation duel, rather than his actual name. Over time, the title of XX Designer might be born. Originally, the title of a duelist was proof of one's popularity. That's all for the interview. Dark placed his hand between his chest and abdomen, bowed slightly, and returned the microphone to senior sister Judy. Judy smiled and said, We've already taken up too much of the next duel's time. Since our audience has been satisfied, let's invite the next group of contestants to come on stage. When Dake came down from the stage, the next contestant was already waiting at the stairs. He greeted the student and walked straight to the contestant's tunnel. Not long after, Dake returned to his seat in the ring. Doran and Pitan immediately asked him all sorts of questions. He signaled the two to lower their voices, so that they wouldn't disturb the audience. But as he spoke, the students behind him couldn't help but ask questions. Clearly, everyone was more interested in his identity as the designer than the duel on stage. As time went on, the opening duel of the Silver Cup finally came to an end. At 9 o'clock sharp, tonight's duel ended. The audience began to leave one after another. The students and professors in the venue also got up and left. A huge torrent of people rushed out of the outdoor duel arena. Dake didn't want to be a decoration in the torrent, so he waited outside for a while. Then Doran suddenly interrupted. Dake, how about going to Traveler's Street to eat something tonight? It's my treat. Dake demung. This was the first time he was invited by a guy in the same grade for supper. But he thought about it and refused, although it was a pity. He already prepared supper tonight, so he couldn't accept Doran's invitation. Doran said helplessly, Is it Aurora? She's been sending you supper for a month. Do you know how it feels to be able to smell the fragrance in the hallway every night when we open the door? Dake laughed and said, You guys have fun tonight. Okay. Doran sighed and took Pitan and a few other people in the small circle to go to the night market on Traveler's Street and eat some snacks to relieve the pressure. Yes, pressure. Tonight's opening duel of the Silver Cup, other than being a feast for the eyes, also made most of the ambitious second-year students feel a huge amount of pressure. Why are you guys so strong when we're all in the same grade? The existence of a top-notch person could always lead to an increase in the overall level. Dake walked a step behind the crowd. But at some point, Deanna and Luosi appeared beside him hand in hand. The three of them gathered together and walked towards the tower under the moonlight. They climbed the spiral staircase and arrived at the 10th floor of the clock tower, where the lights were bright. When they opened the door, they saw the sub-beast telling a story to the little girl. The little bear cub with short arms and legs was also sitting on the sofa, holding a book and reading it. As for the other two contestants of the Magical Animals Society, they most likely returned to the tower after watching the duel. Dake first summoned the magician's secretary. Then with the help of the magician's secretary, he summoned the rest of the magical spirits one by one. The schedule for tomorrow and the day after would be released before midnight. But Dake guessed that his schedule for this week should have already been completed, so he didn't care. But Deanna and Luosi were excitedly discussing the upcoming duel. They stayed in the Magical Animals Society until 10 at night, then returned to the tower of the aristocrat house. Dake had just finished the all-nourishing soup that Aurora sent over, and was discussing today's silver cup with her when the branch card in his card bag suddenly vibrated. Beep! The sound of a message notification rang out. Dake pulled out the branch card, with some doubts, and found that he still had a duel schedule in the next 2 days. Good morning. 8/. It's the end of the month. The monthly votes will expire if you don't vote. There's no upper limit for this month's votes. You can vote more than 5. Chapter 607. Is it the competition schedule? Aurora came over and asked softly. She enjoyed her supper every night as it made her feel like she was moving towards her goal. There's a match tomorrow and the day after. Dake showed her the branch card and said, I thought that after the 3 matches today, I would be a pure spectator. I didn't think that the person who arranged the schedule would still remember me. Then he shook his head and said, But this is good too. The earlier I fill up the schedule, the more time I have to do my own things. Oh right, next week, I should go to the underground city again. You're going to the underground city again? Aurora looked at the branch card, and then looked away. Dake nodded and said, I still have some things to do. He didn't reveal the details of the underground city. It wasn't good to say too much about it before it was clear. Fortunately, Aurora wasn't someone who would get to the bottom of it. Remember the website, VIP, can't you? 6. She quickly revealed a shy smile and said, Then I won't be coming next Friday and Saturday night. Okay. Dake said, I'll be troubling you these days. Aurora shook her head slightly and said, It's not troublesome. I just like to cook. But as she spoke, her face turned red. She quickly got up and said, Then I'll go back first. I'll watch your match tomorrow. Dake smiled and said, Okay, if you have anything you don't understand or want to learn, you can ask me. Aurora picked up her plate and said, I will. Then good night? Dake said, Good night. After sending Aurora off, Dake went back to his dorm. Only then did he calm down and start to draw the day's major sins. Since the start of October, including tonight, he had drawn a total of 4 times. Because greed had reached 98 points at the end of last month, he had chosen greed for the past 4 nights. Now, greed stored in the worm branch and thinking bottle had reached 13 points. Pride was still at 2 points. Bliss was 6 points. Unless Kitty Plant Flower and Wood Shop successfully developed a complete version of bunny grass, or he encountered other necessary uses during this period. Dark was prepared to continue accumulating bliss and greed until he could refine bliss or greed. Even if the flower of bliss or the flower of greed were only incomplete versions according to the current refining method, they were still valuable. Through the refinement and experiments of different great sin seeds, more effective research data could be obtained. With enough research data, it was possible to analyze the direction and make improvements and adjustments to the existing refining methods. Dake had pinned his hopes on the dungeon exploration next weekend. However, the god of the dungeon was just a guess. Even if it really existed, it might not be able to give him any enlightenment. Therefore, these basic research could not be neglected. It could even be said that such basic research was even more important. After drawing the great sins, Dake bathed, meditated, and quickly fell asleep. When he woke up the next morning, he picked up the 3,000 items, 8,000 training methods, and read it on the bed for a while. After that, he lazily got out of bed and washed up. Yesterday's 3 consecutive duels, especially the last duel with Sarah, had really consumed a lot of his mind and energy. The audience who first came into contact with magician duels would always think that the duel was very short, and that the duelist should be very relaxed. However, in a duel where every second mattered, the consumption of mental power was unimaginable. When the magicians were highly focused, they would subconsciously use their mana to speed up their thinking. Even though the acceleration was not large, it would still cause the consumption of mental power to multiply. The magic that Dake tried to learn from a few math professors that could increase the speed of thinking had a similar drawback. After he finished washing up, he put trash slime on his face, walked out of the bathroom, and sat down in front of the desk. Not long after he sat down, the little devil beast flew into the balcony with a basket. There were 2 rolls of newspapers on the basket. They were the Great Sage Daily and the Clown Daily. Ever since he was in 2nd grade, Dake had his own newspaper subscription. The distribution point of the newspapers was the cafeteria that the students had to go to every morning. He took out the 2 rolls of newspapers, opened the lid of the basket, and put a napkin on the table. He took out his breakfast one by one and put it on the napkin, eating it in small bites. In the past, the magic elves would very cutely come over to ask for food, but now, they would go to the cafeteria to enjoy their breakfast. After Dake ate a little, he opened the Great Sage Daily and read it carefully. As expected, the headline of this morning's Great Sage Daily was indeed about the mock duel. Looks like the advertisements for the mock duel have indeed been released. Dake looked carefully and found that there was even a detailed introduction of the Silver Cup exhibition matches in the newspaper. Hero's Son, Silver Dragon Lady, and Cold Winter Lady were all widely advertised as image spokespersons for the magic duel. At the end, there was even a mysterious designer who had not yet appeared. The advertisements should all be in place, but I wonder how well the public will accept it? After Dake finished reading this part, he was a little worried. In this era where there was a lack of screen media, there were limitations to only spreading through paper media. Even if this newspaper introduced the mock duel in a very interesting way, it might not be able to convey it completely. Moreover, he actually had another worry. The mock duel could be said to be a simplified version of the magic duel, and the simplified version was very easy to be called the degraded version by others. If there were people with ulterior motives, they might belittle the mock duel based on this. Once such a situation really occurs, it will involve a battle of public opinion. Dake could not help but ponder. But he quickly smiled and shook his head. With the Shungmalian Academy and the Duke's Mansion as well as the endorsement of Hero and Valkyrie, what kind of power would be able to overwhelm them in a battle of public opinion? Or rather, did such a power really exist? After breakfast, Dake continued to study the 3,000 items, 8,000 training methods. The successful refinement of Spider Pearl, Moon Pendant, and Sickle Dagger gave him a lot of confidence. But that was because there were templates in the 3,000 items, 8,000 training methods, that could be imitated. And the few items that he really wanted to refine were not in the 3,000 items. Not really, there were still some templates that were similar. It was just that the degree of similarity was somewhat mysterious. Therefore, if he wanted to refine them, he needed more adjustments and compilation. Among the 4 item cards that he planned to refine, Rhino Horn was the simplest and the easiest to refine. In the 3,000 items, 8,000 training methods, there was also an item card refinement method called Beast Horn that could be used as a reference. So he decided to start his research with the Rhino Horn and further learn and master the method of making item cards through practice. The morning passed quickly. Dake made some progress in his research, but it was not to the point where he could put it into practice. After lunch, he called the enchanted fairies in front of him and began to think again. According to the schedule sent by the academy, he would be on the duel stage again this afternoon, but this time his opponent would be a student from the House of Fools. Come to think of it, he had defeated the contestants from the Knights, Nobles and Magisters in the 3 duels yesterday, so it was indeed the House of Fools' turn today. The second-year student from the House of Fools was called Jimmy Abbott. Jimmy Abbott was like the other second-year students in the House of Fools, and his presence was relatively low. But Dake actually knew him, because he was the only second-year student in the House of Fools who had a divination talent. Because of this, he also took Professor Midya's astrology class. The House of Fools may seem inconspicuous, but there are actually a few dark horses every year. They can't be underestimated. Dake pondered for a while, then looked at the enchanted fairies and asked, "Who wants to go up?" In the 3 duels yesterday, Dake used a deck with bliss as the core theme, and it was quite effective. But since that set of cards had already been verified, then of course that set of cards couldn't be used in today's duel. He was going to build a new deck with a total of 20 cards. At first, he wanted to try the Zoo series, but after thinking about it carefully, he realized that the only magic card that matched Bird and Beast was Zoo. If he only used Zoo as the core to build the deck, if he couldn't draw Zoo in the first 2 or 3 rounds, then even if he won, it wouldn't have much to do with Zoo. The so-called Zoo deck would probably end up as a deck made up purely of Bird and Beast. It lacked practical significance. If it wasn't for the Zoo deck, he could only build a Bliss plus Pride deck. Bliss plus Pride? Dake picked up his pen and started to think about it in his notebook. First, I need an enchanted fairy card that can use Bliss to upgrade or evolve. Enchanted Beast, Ibu, Enchanted Beast, Multiform Monster, Curse Cage, Little Devil Beast, Dream Demon, Demon Fox, Curse Cage, Subancient Beast. Secondly, I need an enchanted fairy card that can use Pride to upgrade or evolve. Enchanted Beast, Ibu, Enchanted Beast, Multiform Monster, Curse Cage, Little Devil Beast, Diru Beast, Lion Beast, Primordial Dragon Egg, Curse Cage, Subancient Beast. As you can see, the first 3 cards of these 2 sets of enchanted fairy cards overlap. Temporarily remove Curse Cage, Subancient Beast. Then combine all the enchanted fairy cards except for Curse Cage, Subancient Beast. If it comes, there will be 8 enchanted fairy cards. Since Curse Cage, Little Devil Beast, and Diru Beast are both here, I can add fusion into it. In order to ensure that half of the enchanted fairy cards in the deck, I can add Kettle Kettle and Wrestling. Since Lion Beast is here, I can change it to a 2-star card, Enchanted Secretary. As for single scabbard weapon form, I will still temporarily put it in the item card. After adding Bliss and Pride, S Great Sin card, a simple card composition is completed. Dake wrote in his notebook, Fairy card Frowny Face, Enchanted Beast, Ibu, Enchanted Beast, Multiform Monster, Curse Cage, Little Devil Beast, Enchanted Secretary, Dream Demon, Demon Fox, Kettle Kettle, Primordial Dragon Egg, Diru Beast, Lion Beast, item card Frowny Face, single scabbard weapon form. Moon God Soul Eye magic card Frowny Face, Bliss 3, 0, Bliss 3, Bliss 3 month, Bliss 3 month, Pride 3, 0, Pride 3, Pride. Underworld Soul Ring, Flight Spell. After careful consideration, Dake temporarily removed Moon Pendant from the deck, but kept Moon God Soul Eye. But this way, there would be 1 more card in the deck, from 20 cards to 21 cards. But in fact, 21 cards should be a more reasonable composition than 20 cards. According to the rules of the Enchanted Duel, you can't draw cards in the first round, and you have to draw 5 magic cards in the preparation stage. If there are only 20 magic cards, you can only draw 1 magic card in the 9th round. But if there are 21 magic cards, you can get 2 magic cards in the 9th round. So 21 cards is more reasonable than 20 cards. Anyway, that's it for now. Dake finally decided. Then he showed the enchanted fairies the composition of the deck. This time, he only put the enchanted fairies that he needed into the magic cards. The remaining enchanted fairies showed an envious look. Big Milkkin also showed a hint of loneliness. In the 3 duels yesterday, Big Milkkin didn't have a chance to fight. Today it was replaced with Fairy Ibu by Diru Beast and Lion Beast, which made it feel a little lonely. Fairy Ibu had at least had a chance to fight. Although she was pouting, she didn't have much of an opinion. On the other hand, Hawkman, who had been replaced by Secretary of the Enchanted Arts, sat there calmly. Dake saw the expressions of the enchanted fairies, but he didn't change his mind because of this. He ordered the enchanted fairies in the cards to rest and asked, "Is there anyone who wants to watch the competition with me?" The enchanted fairies were all excited. The opening ceremony was over, and the silver cup, that was limited to the second years, no longer took up the center of the stage. The second years also didn't have to sit together in the designated seats. Dake could bring the enchanted fairies in to watch the duel. To the enchanted fairies, sitting in the audience's seats and watching the enchanted arts duel was definitely a very novel experience. After the enchanted fairies received Dake's instructions, they all began to move. Not long after, many of the enchanted fairies carried small bags filled with snacks and candies for themselves and their companions. Don't forget to bring trash bags. Although Dake felt helpless, he still reminded them. 1:00 sharp. Dake brought the enchanted fairies into the open-air duel arena. He quickly found Deanna and Luosi in the ring. This time, there were no other girls beside them. When Deanna found him, she raised her hand high and waved it with all her might. Dake smiled and quickened his pace, arriving beside the two girls. Luckily, the seats around them were still quite empty. Dark first arranged for the magic guide fairies to sit around before sitting down in a leisurely manner. Deanna looked at the enchanted fairies and suddenly laughed. She took out a bag of collector's candies from her small bag. Therefore, little Snorlax was easily hooked to her side. She rubbed little Snorlax's white and tender belly comfortably and asked Dake, "First match?" Dake said, "The 12th match in the afternoon. It's still early." "Then Luosi will go first." Deanna turned to look at Luosi and said. Dake asked, "Is Luosi also going to fight? Who's her opponent?" Luosi looked a bit nervous. She turned sideways and said, "It's Ai Ma." The 10th match in the afternoon. Knights Academy, Ai Ma Métis vs Aristocrats Academy, Luosi Flotti. This classic match between Knights Academy and Aristocrats Academy attracted a lot of attention from the very beginning. Of course, if it was in the last school year, Luosi was only Dake Diming's follower in most of the students' hearts. Therefore, this match wouldn't be as important as it was now. Her outstanding performance in the debut match and her enthusiastic appearance in the newcomers' competition had gradually changed people's impression of her. Many of the second-year students who were defeated by her in the newcomers' competition were forced to acknowledge her strength. But even so, not many people thought that she could defeat Ai Ma Métis. When you think that you have improved a lot, people who are better than you might have improved more than you. Many students subconsciously had this thought. Then they all expressed that they didn't think Luosi would win. As for Dake, he didn't think so either. Even though Dake was cheering for Luosi, there was a fatal flaw in her deck. If it was Ai Ma, she would have seen it from her previous match. As for whether Ai Ma would make specific adjustments to her deck, it would depend on how much she valued the silver cup and the true strength of her original deck. Ai Ma might not have used her full strength in yesterday's duel. Dake, who had some understanding of her, could easily see it. But if she still wants to hide her strength in the duel with Luosi, Dake shook his head. He didn't think it was possible. Smart people always had a clearer understanding of their own strength. Ai Ma wouldn't take the risk of losing and continue to hide her strength. Then sure enough, her duel with Luosi was unusually fierce. Luosi still adopted a defensive counterattack tactic, but Ai Ma didn't hesitate to adopt a strong offensive tactic. She didn't even attack Luosi's deck in a roundabout way. Instead, she attacked from all directions. In this duel, Ai Ma didn't underestimate her opponent at all. She went all out from the beginning, and finally displayed the powerful strength of the second-year Knight Academy's top student. Although Luosi also tried his best to resist, in the end, he lost because of the lack of strength of his deck. Dake's first intuition after watching this match was that Ai Ma had most likely been accepted as the successor of the Sage of Secrets. Although before this, Ai Ma Métis's relationship with the Sage of Secrets was only limited to her mother being the Sage of Secrets as disciple. But when she returned from the Sheng Malian Academy with excellent results, that relationship was no longer a shackle. It wasn't impossible even if the Sage of Secrets personally came to recruit her. The winner was interviewed, and the loser exited. Luosi returned to the ring, obviously disappointed. Deanna hurriedly comforted him and kept feeding him. Rose looked at the increasing number of snacks in her hands, and finally laughed out loud. Dake said, "You didn't fall behind by much. There's no need to be depressed." Deanna waved her claws and said, wait until I'm ranked with her. I'll definitely avenge you." Dake couldn't help but laugh. "Speaking of which, my opponent tomorrow is AI Ma. Does this duel club really want me to rank with the top students of all the academies?" Deanna suddenly opened her eyes wide. "Tomorrow?" Dake nodded and stood up. "Yes. But I'm going to prepare for my duel with Jimmy Abbott now." Oh. Deanna tried hard to remember this student's name. Chapter 608. Jimmy Abbott. His looks were average, his grades were average, and his background was average. Other than having a little divination talent, there was nothing unusual about him. However, Jimmy had a good personality, treated people sincerely, and was willing to help others. This made him quite popular in the clubhouse of fools. Beep! When his school card suddenly vibrated, the eyes of Bobby Bonner, a second-year student from the clubhouse of fools sitting next to him, lit up. He leaned closer and said, "It's your turn, Jimmy." "Don't be so excited, Bobby. I'm the one going up," Jimmy said while touching his forehead. Bobby turned around and laughed. "That's why I'm so excited. If it were me, I would definitely be hiding somewhere and gnawing on the corner of the table." "No matter how nervous I am, I wouldn't be gnawing on the corner of the table, right?" Jimmy muttered. "Don't listen to his nonsense." Another second-year student from the clubhouse of fools came over and said, "How are your preparations? Can you do it?" Jimmy couldn't help but ask, "What do I have to do to make it work?" "I'll try my best." The second-year student hurriedly said, "Don't be too nervous. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be able to fight on the same stage as Dake." Jimmy nodded. "I understand." Then he patted his card bag and stood up. "Then I'll go first." The second-year student immediately raised his fist and said, "Good luck." Bobby also echoed, "Let's see how you perform. We'll all cheer you on." Jimmy nodded vigorously and walked resolutely toward the contestants' passage. His gradually fading back was like an old general who carried everything on his back as he walked onto the battlefield. There was a solemn atmosphere. The second-year students from the clubhouse of fools looked at each other. Suddenly, they turned their heads and continued to watch the 21st match that was about to begin. After entering the normal competition schedule, the Silver Cup points matches would be held in multiple venues at the same time. There was no post-match interview segment. In addition, the newcomer competition that would be held every Saturday morning would also be held in an orderly manner. The audience could freely choose to watch any of the ongoing matches. The match between Dake Dimming and Jimmy Abbott was scheduled to be held in the center of the venue. It was obvious that they were interested in Dake's popularity from yesterday. The duel club had always been very particular about the arrangement of the tournament. When Jimmy Abbott passed through the contestant passageway and entered the arena, he discovered that there were already staff members waiting for him at the passageway. He took a deep breath and followed the staff to the designated duel venue. "Is it here?" Standing in front of the steps leading to the contestant stage, Jimmy tried his best to remain calm. He then raised his head to look at the other contestant stage. On the blue team's platform, Dake lowered his head and looked down. He raised his hand and waved at Jimmy, revealing a friendly smile. Jimmy raised his hand in response, then stepped onto the red team's platform. Ever since he got the schedule last night, he had been preparing for this moment. Now that the time had come, whether he would amaze the world with a single brilliant feat or vanish into the crowd would depend on his performance. And on the blue team's platform, Dake observed the student from the House of Fools for a while and said in surprise, "He looks quite imposing." Jimmy had short, dark gray hair. His skin was slightly yellow, and there were freckles on his face. He had an ordinary appearance that no one would turn their heads to look at. But in this world, ordinary people were the majority. It was very impolite to judge a book by its cover. When Jimmy stepped onto the contestant stage, It was obvious that he wasn't here to brush it off. Dake decided to treat it seriously. Good afternoon, Dimung. After Jimmy stepped onto the red team's platform, he activated the card table and greeted him. Good afternoon, Abbott. Dake returned the greeting, then asked casually, how's the astrology class going? Jimmy immediately showed a distressed expression. Can you not mention that? That's too difficult. Dake laughed and said, that's true. The relationship between the two of them instantly became much closer. Jimmy once again adjusted his mood and said seriously, for the upcoming duel, please advise me. Dake nodded and said, please advise me. Then the two of them didn't exchange any more pleasantries and quickly prepared. Dake had already inserted the card deck into the card slot before Jimmy arrived. When Jimmy also inserted the card deck into the card slot, both sides shuffled the cards at the same time. At the top of the card table, the words preparation stage appeared. The referee in charge of this match looked at both sides and blew the whistle to remind them. Both contestants, please prepare yourselves. The countdown is about to begin. The commentator, who was giving a brief introduction of the two contestants, immediately stopped and waited. The atmosphere of the duel was gradually brewing. Dake placed his hand on the top of the card deck and was ready to quickly draw a card. Beep! The referee blew the whistle again. Behind the preparation stage, a 30s countdown appeared. The expressions of the contestants on both sides instantly became serious. His dignified expression was displayed in front of the audience as the projection zoomed in. The changes in the appearance of the contestants during the duel was one of the factors that attracted the audience to watch the duel. Among the audience today, some of them had received the news that the designer Dake Dimung would be on stage in the afternoon, and came to support him. Some of the audience even rushed to make signs and banners with slogans, and waved them in the corner of the audience seats. Although the scale was not as big as the veteran celebrity duelists, it was already something. That was why one should never underestimate the power of the fans, no matter what era it was. Dake heard the audience shouting his name when he drew a card, but he focused and ignored the external influences. With all 5 magic cards in hand, he was completely immersed in the duel. Let's see how lucky I am today. Lion Beast, Magic Secretary, Kettle Kettle. Bliss 3 Moon Pride Roar, a Bliss 3 Moon and a Pride Roar. Drawing these 2 magic cards at the beginning of the duel can almost determine the outcome. However, among the 5 magic cards in the beginning, there are no magic elven cards that can directly use these 2 great sin cards. Although the Lion Beast can use Pride Roar to evolve into a Mad Lion Beast, it's a 5-star magic elven card. I'm in luck. I have all the offerings. Dark looked at the 2 magic elf cards in his hand that couldn't be evolved with the Great Sin card. He couldn't help but smile helplessly. The third-year commentator in charge of the duel suddenly brightened and said loudly, we can see that Dake Dimung has a very confident smile on his face. It seems that he is very satisfied with the 5 magic cards in his hand. We might be able to see a high-level duel. The commentator's words entered Jimmy Abbott's ears, and he frowned slightly. In order to calm himself down, he quickly said in a low voice, don't worry, I've drawn a good card too. Looks like we're both in luck. Dake suddenly raised his head, and said when he heard that. Jimmy smiled awkwardly. Then, both players noticed at the same time that the 30-second countdown of the preparation phase was down to single digits. Tick. The preparation phase instantly switched to the battle phase. The 30-second countdown of the first round of the battle phase began. Almost at the same time, both players drew a card from their hands and quickly cast their normal summoning spells. Jimmy's normal summoning spell was actually not slow. However, compared to Dake's synchronized summoning, the difference was obvious. In the name of Dake Dimung, Magic Elven Summoning, Kettle Kettle. A white light shot out from the surface of the magic card and landed on the blue team's summoning area. A bug elven creature that looked like a little turtle appeared instantly. Kettle Kettle's eyes focused. It was certain that it was the first to be summoned, and it was instantly excited. In its line of sight, the red team's platform also lit up. However, just as it was guessing what kind of elven creature it would be facing this time, the white light shot out from Jimmy's magic card enveloped the magic ball on the red team's platform. he did not choose to summon his elven creature in the first round. Seeing this, Dake raised his eyebrows and raised his attention. Choosing to summon another type of magic card in the first round and not the elven creature. This was actually a common tactic in high-level duels, but it was very rare in the lower grades. There were many reasons why a magus would summon his elven creature. The most obvious reasons were to protect the magic ball from being attacked immediately, to prepare the sacrifice for the second-tier elven creature as soon as possible, and so on. Among them, to protect the magic ball played a large role. However, what if there were other methods to protect the magic ball? In the name of Jimmy Abbott, Magic Elven Summoning, Quick Invisibility. Jimmy raised his hand and pointed, and the red magic ball suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. He had used one of the invisibility spell at the beginning of the match. When Dake saw this, he could not help but be surprised. Quick Invisibility could be said to be a derivative spell of the invisibility spell. While it almost eliminated the invisibility spell's invisibility, it also increased the invisibility duration from 5 seconds to 3 minutes. With Dake's current level, he could have made magic spells like quick invisibility and heavy obstacles long ago, but his research focus was not on them. Not only was Jimmy able to make quick invisibility, but he was also able to use it flexibly in a duel, which was already quite good. However, as long as there was a illusion worm, this invisibility would be easily broken. However, Jimmy's initial invisibility was a gamble that Dake did not put a illusion worm or other invisibility breaking cards into the deck. This way, he would have 6 rounds of time to make a detour. It would also make up for the disadvantage of a slower summoning speed. He released his magic, and in the next moment, the invisible magic ball was pulled up into the air. As for Dark Diamond, he had already begun his second summon at the same time as he did so. In the name of Dake Dimming, I summon the Sorcerer Secretary. The original reason for putting the Sorcerer Secretary into the deck was to allow it to cast the spell at the same time and summon the cards faster. However, as soon as he entered the duel, Dake quickly discovered that the Sorcerer Secretary was not very useful, at least in the Silver Cup. Therefore, he had summoned it this time to use it as a sacrifice. When the Sorcerer Secretary was summoned, another 3 seconds had passed. Jimmy's usual summoning spell had just finished its cooldown, so he did not have any offensive magic spirits in the field, so it was not a threat at all. Dark was able to fully concentrate on casting the summoning spell, and completed the summoning of the 2 first-tier magic guide fairies as quickly as possible. Then, for the third summoning, he chose the sacrificial summoning spell. As for the target of the sacrificial summoning, it was naturally the lion. There is 1 3-star and 1 2-star. I will offer Kettle Pot and Sorcerer Secretary as sacrifices to summon the embodiment of justice here and now. Come out, lion. Even though Kettle Pot was a little displeased that it had been turned from a main card to a sacrifice, it still followed Dake's wishes and turned into light. When the 3 rays of light converged in the air and quickly formed a sacrificial summoning circle, the righteous lion was finally summoned. The second-tier 5-star magic spirit, the lion. The commentator shouted excitedly. Contestant Dake Dimming has summoned a 5-star magic spirit in the first round, and it is one of his trump cards, the lion. Many of the newcomers may not know, but once the lion wields a longsword, it is unstoppable. The lion walked out of the sacrificial summoners calmly, and then frowned as he looked at the opposite side. There was no magic spirit or magic ball on the opposite side of the field, so he did not know what to do. Protect the magic ball. Just when it was at a loss, Dark's instructions came faintly, allowing it to calm down. However, Dake was also feeling a little helpless. Not only did he not put the spirit bug and revealing powder into the deck, but he also changed the flight spell to fusion. However, the conditions for using fusion were harsh. Without the flight spell, even if the lion evolved into the Mad Lion, it would be too far away to deal with aerial units. Therefore, Dake decisively gave up on the idea of summoning the Mad Lion in the first round. Looks like this duel won't end in the first round. He looked at the 2 Great Sin cards in his hand and waited patiently. After Kieran summoned the Lion Beast, Jimmy Abbott also completed his second summon. This time he didn't use any spell cards. Instead, he obediently summoned a first-tier magic elf. That magic spirit had the appearance of a rat man. With its back straight, it should be about 1.5 meters tall. It wore a black cloak with a red inside and a black outside. In its hand was a tube as long as an arm. But just as Dake was thinking about the use of that tube, the magic spirit suddenly swung its cloak. The cloak instantly expanded and covered its entire body. Then the magic spirit and the cloak both disappeared without a trace. Looks like Jimmy Abbott is using the Stealth series. It can also be said that he is using the Stealth series of cards. Hiding in the dark is indeed impossible to guard against. The long tube in the Ratman's hand is very likely to be a tool with an extremely long range and accurate attack range. Dake's thinking speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he caught the Ratman magic spirit's intention. He immediately said, "Lion, be vigilant." Almost in the next moment, a white light suddenly shot over. The lion reacted quickly and clawed over. It actually slapped down a white pellet from the air. This white pellet was not originally aimed at the lion, but it was successfully blocked, eliminating the possibility of the blue magic ball being hit. After Jimmy's attack failed, he immediately ordered the magic spirit to change its position and look for an opportunity to attack a second time. Card name, Hidden Rat Archer. Type, Spirit card. Level, *****. Race, Subhuman. Attribute, Normal. Magic power, 1400. Attack, 1200. Defense, 300. Killing skills. Invisibility cloak, missile shot. A purple card with 2 killing skills. The Hidden Rat Archer was the absolute core of Jimmy Abbott's deck. Its ultimate skill, Invisibility Cloak, allowed the Hidden Rat Archer to remain invisible without being touched. On the other hand, the Sure Kill skill, Missile Archer, allowed it to shoot out white pellets to attack distant targets. However, the condensation of each missile consumed magic power. If it was a successful hit, it could cause 500 to 1,000 points of damage, not counting defense. This meant that if the Hidden Rat Archer's hit rate was high enough, it only needed to repeat a few times to shatter the magic ball's life barrier without shedding a drop of blood. Is this the surprise? Dake calmed down and placed his hand on top of the deck, preparing to draw a card. The 30-second countdown passed in an instant. If he wanted to break out of this situation, he could only place his hopes on the next 2 magic cards. To deal with invisible enemies, other than directly breaking their invisibility, the easiest way was to use a large-scale killing skill to make them appear physically. If the next magic conducting card he drew was a magic conducting elf card with a large area of effect Sure Kill skill, then it would be relatively easy to find the red magic conducting ball and shatter it, thus ending the duel. Tick. The sound of the turn changing entered his ears. Dake immediately drew a card. 2 magic spirit cards were immediately in his hands. Demon Fox, Dream Demon, Demon Fox, and Dream Demon were both 3-star, and both could use Bliss 3 to evolve. But Dake only had 1 Bliss 3 Moon. This meant that he had to choose one of the 2. But within this, after a Demon Fox evolved into a 9-tailed fox, it gained the ability to control flames to cover the entire field. After a Dream Demon evolved into a Dream Demon, although it did not possess a large-scale killing skill, it could activate the Nightmare Realm. Through the expanding purple fog, it could determine the opponent's coordinates. Of course, because the Nightmare Realm involved a certain degree of spatial control. Once activated, the Dream Demon did not need the fog to determine the location of all targets. The so-called invisibility was meaningless in front of it, unless Jimmy was able to pull the magic ball to a height that the Nightmare Realm could not reach. But that would not be easy. Dake's heart stirred, and he chose the more reliable Dream Demon. After confirming, he immediately summoned it. In the name of Dake Dimming, I summon with magic, Dream Demon. Following a childlike laughter, the little Dream Demon appeared from the summoning light. It was similar to the lion, curiously looking at the empty field. Following that, a white pellet suddenly shot over. Little Demon. The Dream Demon's body turned blurry in a flash, allowing the white pellet to pierce through its abdomen. But because the pellet was condensed from magic, it still received damage. The dream demon, that was ambushed, instantly flushed, angrily glaring at the direction the white pellet was fired from. Jimmy's hidden rat archer adhered to the tactic of changing location after firing a shot, and broke into a run. But the dream demon's telekinesis had already arrived. Although the telekinesis did not have much strength, and could only be used to move objects, but if it was ingenious, it could be used to target enemies. Out of Dake's expectations, when the dream demon's ability covered over, the hidden rat archer appeared due to external contact. Lion. Dake's eyes lit up, and he did not hesitate to give the order. When the lion heard the call, it also exerted strength under its feet, instantly exploding with a large amount of strength, exploding out from its original spot. Not good. On the red team's platform, Jimmy's expression changed. But he was in the middle of summoning a new magic guide spirit, so he could not stop. Even if he stopped, it would be useless. As his second magic guide spirit appeared in the red team's summoning area, the hidden rat archer was already enveloped by the lion's might. Beast King Fist. A cold roar sounded. The lion's huge fist had already arrived in front of the hidden rat archer. In reality, it did not use the killing move of the Beast King Fist. The lion's normal punch had already killed the defenseless, hidden rat archer in an instant. Then the lion's feet spun, and it leaped once again, heading straight for the red team's summoning area. Fogcat. Use fog concealment technique. Jimmy's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly shouted. The mist cat with gray fur and a slender body immediately spat out mist. As the fog quickly spread, its body was also faintly discernible. But before it was completely invisible, the lion had already pounced in. Card name, Fogcat. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, bird beast. Attribute, fairy. Magic power, 1400. Attack, 1300. Defense, 500. Killing move, fog concealment technique, fog shuriken. It was also a purple card with 2 killing moves. Fogcat and hidden rat archer's killing moves were almost the same. One was concealment, and the other was a long-range attack. But in terms of 3 attributes, Fogcat was higher than hidden rat archer. However, such a small difference was nothing in front of the lion. Without hesitation, the lion rushed into the fog and used the true Beast King Fist. This time, Beast King Fist, accompanied by a roar that was like a lion's roar. The lion-shaped energy wave dispersed the entire gray fog, and also killed the Fogcat, hiding in it on the spot. The situation on the field was completely one-sided. After the lion killed the hidden rat archer and Fogcat consecutively, it stood in the middle of the red team's summoning area and looked up at Jimmy Abbott on the player's stage. It seemed to be asking, "Any more?" Jimmy's expression changed rapidly. His gaze kept sweeping through the cards in his hand. However, the magic card in his hand that he had meticulously prepared was so pale in the face of absolute power. He gritted his teeth slightly and prepared to summon the magic spell card, Fog Spell. Fog Spell was not a high-level magic spell, but it could blow up a thick fog in the field, allowing the magic elves that had lost their concealment ability to hide in it. If Dake unexpectedly brought a magic card with the ability to see through concealment, he was prepared to use this fog spell to deal with it. As for now, he simply wanted to increase the difficulty of Dake finding the magic ball. However, Dake was not prepared to drag this out with him. In the name of Dake Dimming, I summon the magic spell, Bliss 3, Moon. Following the sprinkling of pink radiance, the dream demon let out a joyous cry. Following that, under the radiance of the bliss, it evolved into a dream demon. Looking at the floating dream demon, Dake calmly commanded, "Dream demon, activate the nightmare realm and cover the entire field." Little demon Heartsuit. After hearing Dake's command, the dream demon coquettishly called out. Following that, it spread out its tentacles and unleashed its killing move, Nightmare Realm. Its eyes emitted a demonic pink light, and a dense purple mist suddenly erupted from below, spreading out in all directions at an extremely fast speed. In a blink of an eye, the purple fog covered the entire blue team field, and continued to spread towards the red team field. Although the purple smoke only covered the ground below his knees, the height of the fully expanded nightmare realm was no less than its length and width. In reality, it was a cube with the same length, width and height. But due to the field's shape, it had no choice but to adjust the shape of the nightmare realm. Anyway, under the coverage of this enormous space, the red magic sphere had nowhere to hide. In the name of Dake Dimming, I summoned the demon fox. Dake didn't give Jimmy any chance. Before he ordered the dream demon to attack the red magic sphere, he summoned the demon fox. And in this way, out of his 3 magical spirits, 2 of them were distributed between the opponent and his summoning area. One was guarding the opponent's magical spirit, while the other was protecting his own magic sphere. As for the dream demon, it silently disappeared into the nightmare realm. Jimmy Abbott didn't even realize that his magic sphere had been discovered. The dream demon, who had concealed itself within the nightmare realm, had grabbed onto his magic sphere. The commentator was still asking the audience how the Dake Dimming player would deal with Jimmy Abbott's concealment. But in the next second he realized that there was no need to deal with it. Since the red magic sphere had been targeted by the dream demon, it couldn't escape. The dream demon raised its tentacles that had transformed into claws, and viciously slapped the red magic sphere twice. With these 2 slaps, the barrier of life instantly shattered. 40000. Beep. The referee instantly blew his whistle, announcing the victor. The battle has ended. Victor, Dake Dimming. After a short while, the commentator's exclamation suddenly rang out, leading the audience to cheer. Although this duel only lasted for 2 rounds, these 2 rounds were the result of a long period of hard work by the front desk. The 2 contestants had their own strategies on the duel stage. Contestant Jimmy Abbott's concealment technique was eye-catching, but contestant Dake Dimming, who easily dispelled it, was obviously stronger. Even the purple fog that covered the entire field couldn't hide the brilliance of contestant Dake Dimming. Then now, let us shout the victor's name. Dake Dimming. The applause of the audience outside the field instantly became intense. Especially the fans who came especially for Dake. Their hands were swollen from clapping. Dake politely smiled in their direction, then raised his hand and waved. The fans became even more excited. While they were celebrating their victory, Jimmy Abbott was quietly packing up the magic cards. Compared to Dake, his magic cards, especially his magic elven cards, were especially weak. Thus, after he knew that his opponent was Dake, he immediately set up a strategy to avoid a direct confrontation. However, this strategy had little effect in the end. Dake's magic elven cards had too many abilities to resolve the situation. Phew! Jimmy exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, then turned around and left the stage. Although this duel was short, he had indeed tried his best. The difference in strength between the 2 sides made the outcome of the duel without any suspense. However, he wouldn't stop here. The deeper one went into the research of magic engineering, the more difficult it was. Dake's progress would slow down sooner or later, and he would rely on his accumulation to gradually catch up. When the gap between the 2 of them was reduced to a certain extent, the suspense of the outcome would increase. That day will eventually come. His eyes were unusually determined. Dake suddenly turned his head and glanced at Jimmy Abbott's back, thinking for a moment as if he had sensed something. Then he put the packed magic cards into his card bag and walked down the stage. Today's duel was quite different from what he had expected. The deck that he had built for this was almost useless. He couldn't test the quality of this deck at all. Tomorrow's duel with AI should give me more room to perform. Dake thought so, and he couldn't help but quicken his pace. There was a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Good morning. 11/. Brothers, is the monthly ticket out yet? Mine is out, but you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.